What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the part 4 of a story where Issei became a villain and had the Omnitrix. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more information. Now, let's get into part 4. Day 19. Valerie Lucifer's group had been paralyzed by the news that Lavinia Renai died of cardiac arrest. The only witness was Valerie Lucifer herself, so they ruled out that she had anything to do with Lavinia Renai's death. If it was going to be a hard blow for the Slash-Dog team, upon learning that Lavinia Renai passed away, another person who found out about the death was Suzaku Himejima, who fainted from the shock of the news. The faction leaders desperately tried to find Issei HYOUDOU to bring forward the fight date, but apparently there were no traces of him, or rather he disappeared, as Athena tried to find some proof that Issei HYOUDOU was working alongside the enemy, but apparently her assumptions were wrong. Issei HYOUDOU himself had appeared only for a few hours, of which he was accompanied by Hakiz Kusarub. However, when they returned to the place where they were supposed to be, they had already left for a long time. The goddess Athena found herself disappointed, or rather ashamed, to suspect that Albedo and Issei HYOUDOU are allies, so she had to put aside her pride and admit that she was wrong. At least she thought no one was going to find out what happened. Issei HYOUDOU, along with Office Ouroboros, Elizabeth Lyons, Ingvild Leviathan and Artemis, were still training in the gravity capsule. Apparently Issei HYOUDOU was getting used to his new armor. Ajuka Beelzebub was thinking about what happened with Issei HYOUDOU. He didn't understand why he doesn't take revenge or just represses all that anger. There must have been something else, but that was already going to find out during the gamer rating. The girls who were engaged to Issei HYOUDOU to have a peace treaty did not know how to react when they realized that the Sekiryuutei is the true hero who saved the underworld countless times, and his brother Dai HYOUDOU, out of jealousy, had lied to keep the fame, rewards and honor of serving the factions. Currently, day 20. Office Ouroboros had a curious look while she gazed in front of her. Her maid Issei transformed into a unique alien. This alien was none other than the strongest alien in the galaxy, the Alien X. Office knew that the specific reason he was using such a transformation is to find some information if there was any hybrid of the descendant of Beelzebub and Asmodeus. But there was something else, something that brought a mocking smile on her face, and that was the reason that was going to cost the underworld dearly. Office. The underworld will receive one of the heaviest blows, and they will never be able to get up again, he said with that mocking smile on his face. Inside the mind of Alien X. Issei HYOUDOU was watching Serena, the voice of love and compassion, Bellicus, the voice of rage and aggression, Issei, the voice of reason. Bellicus. The boy is right, I accept that the factions should suffer, he said in a determined voice. And even more, that it was for people they would never have expected to think, he said angrily at the thought of supernatural beings. Serena. But people make mistakes, it is not wise to take revenge on others, she said sadly, to which Bellicus looks at her with a face of disbelief. Issei. You have seen my life, Serena, you know well that if I forgave them, they will take advantage of me, and when it is no longer necessary they will turn their backs on me, he said angrily, to which Serena simply denied Issei's words. Bellicus. Many people just wait for forgiveness without even doing anything, no matter what they do for peace. After all, many want peace, and that causes more wars, he said mockingly. Issei. I was just unlucky, they don't want me to change and keep only seeking my powers as if nothing had happened, he said sadly. When they find out that I am their enemy, they are going to respect me, but you know why, he said, to which Serena denied. Because they are going to fear me, he said coldly. Serena. It's because that could lead to the deaths of innocent people, it's because maybe you don't care about the children's lives, she said, trying to reason with Issei. Issei. Even innocent foolish children will grow up in the face of pain until their thoughts and beliefs are equal to their doubts, he said, remembering every brat who treated him as the bad one for believing Dai HYOUDOU's lies. Serena. I'll agree to give you the keys to Alien X, but I hope you won't regret it in the future, she said coldly, to which Issei just nodded his head. Bellicus. I agree, he said with a grin, to which Issei bowed to Bellicus's support. Outside of Alien X. It looked like a wide aura was expelled from Alien X, while Office Ouroboros looked at everything with a curious look. Slowly the aura expanded to cover the whole world, but seconds later some images came to Alien X's mind, where Issei HYOUDOU was still focused, to which he slowly turned to Bellicus, who only stated that he could continue with what he is planning. Issei. Apparently Office, the descendants of Beelzebub and Asmodeus passed away some years ago, he said, to which Office simply nodded. So I'll have to use reverse engineering, he said seriously, to which Office just listened to Issei's request. With an expressionless experience, Office created a dimensional gap next to Elizabeth and Artemis to find the corpses of the two descendants of the remaining four mass. Issei. Ingvild. He called, attracting the attention of the descendant of Leviathan. I need you to fence to these coordinates with Valerie as soon as possible. He said seriously, to which Ingvild nodded her head. Ingvild? So those are the coordinates where the… She couldn't finish speaking when she was interrupted by Issei. Issei. From the last descendant of Lucifuge and younger sister of Grafia Lucifuge. He said coldly. Ingvild just nodded her head, then walked away with the mission of informing Valerie Lucifer of the mission ordered by Issei. Issei. Apparently I'm going to play with fire. He said with irony. At least I'm a dragon. Inside Alien X's mind, Bellicus shook his head at the bad joke, to which he proposed to Serena that bad jokes must be banned. Issei. Tomorrow will be the big day, it's a pity that the factions don't have a chance against me. He said coldly, while thinking about the information Artemis and Gondel handed him. Apparently, they plan to stop me with simple traps that are just child's play, he said mockingly. Pathetic. He thought for a moment in the past, images of how he was treated by those people. They judged him only by words without foundation. They believed in meaningless rumors. Apparently it's always up to the good guy to suffer, while the bad guy has to enjoy. He felt so much anger at those moments, but he controlled himself. Because tomorrow was going to be the most anticipated day and which one was going to enjoy slowly. Issei. It's better not to think about it, now I have to concentrate on reviving them both. He said seriously. HYOUDOU residence. There were several people gathered because of what happened a few days ago, since Albedo's attack on the Academy of Oros, who received a big blow to her morale with Sona Citri. Apparently her reconstruction will be suspended until Albedo is arrested. Other girls like Sakvara Agers and Laisha Astareth came to the home to talk to Issei HYOUDOU about their engagement, but apparently they did not find him. This left the two girls in despair, who wanted to cancel said engagement. Girls like Lafay Pendragon or Kuroka were looking for Valerie Lucifer. Apparently the death of Lavinia Renai was a hard blow for her, so some soldiers went to look for her, so that she wouldn't commit a foolishness action, like going alone against Albedo. But what surprised the whole DXD group the most was to learn about a confrontation between Dai HYOUDOU and Issei HYOUDOU. They had their doubts about the reason for said confrontation, since the leaders were reserved about the reason for said confrontation. Others like Michael or Azazel were glad that Gabriel had reacted, but also disappointed that no one noticed it, but what left them with their mouth was how she humiliated Seraphol. Flashback. Serzich's Lucifer is seen along with Grafia Lucifuge, Seraphol Leviathan, Michael and Azazel, who were at the HYOUDOU residence to find Issei HYOUDOU, but they did not find anything about him. But before they could leave, they noticed how Gabriel was coming down the stairs, along with Kusha Abaddon and Asia Argento. The outfit of the Seraphim Gabriel attracted the attention of Azazel and Serzich's, in case the latter reacted by a strong stomp of his queen, while Seraphol gazed at her from head to toe with a look of disbelief. Michael. Sister. He said incredulously when he saw his sister in perfect condition, but when he saw well that his sister's eyes were covered by that bandage his hopes were shattered. Gabriel. Brother, it's good to hear your voice. She said with a tone of happiness and formality. Yes, apparently I managed to recover. It wasn't complete, but at least I'm not a burden to anyone. She said happily, not noticing Seraphol's gaze. Azazel. It's good to see you, Gabriel, that outfit fits you. He was interrupted by the Seraphim Gabriel. Gabriel. You better erase that lustful stare of yours. You know that I have rejected you several times, and that flirting with me will not do you any good. She said with a mocking tone, to which he left the special technology advisor shocked. Serzich's. That had to hurt and in a big way. He thought when he gazed at Azazel with a look of pity. Seraphol. At least you're alright now, Brid. She said with a mocking tone, to which Gabriel just shrugged it off. Gabriel. Looks like we are not going to have dinner, as it is getting late. She said with an innocent tone, not paying attention to the words of the Mao Leviathan. Seraphol. Don't ignore me. She said of seeing her rival ignore her. Gabriel. Seraphol, you know I can't hate you or return your words, so stop being envious of me. She said calmly, before passing by Seraphol going to her dining room. Seraphol was shocked by that words of Gabriel, to which she quickly comes out of her shock, until she reaches the dining room, where she sees the Seraphim Gabriel about to take a seat. Seraphol. What did you said? She asked seriously, drawing the attention of those present. Some were already having dinner at that time. Gabriel. What you heard, that your attitude of yours annoying me has a limit and you have already reached that limit. She said seriously, while a glass appears next to her and wine. Seraphol at this only gritted her teeth because of her rival's so disinterested attitude, but it angered her more as this one told her that she got tired of her words. The others were pretty shocked the attitude of Gabriel without being able to believe it, while Seraphol was gradually turning red with anger. Gabriel. I know I'm beautiful, Seraphol. She said, to which she attracted the attention of those present. Thank you for admiring me, after all you envy me and want to be like me. She said calmly, to then take the bottle of wine and pour some into her glass. Seraphol. What are you talking about? She shouted angrily, while Gabriel continued to drink wine without taking much notice of the Mao. Gabriel. Although it's ironic, mainly because of the Leviathan title that Serafal has, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, I don't want to insult Ingvald-san. She said, while trying to calm those present and not provoke misunderstandings. Serafal didn't know what to say, those present practically watched as Gabriel calmly and patiently annoyed the current Mao Leviathan. End of the flashback. Ria's Gremory calmly had a tired look on her face. These days since Albedo attack, it was a serious blow to them, but above all that this attack was planned in a way that left the DXD group seen as useless. Ria's. Damn, things are getting worse with every passing day. She said in frustration. Previously she thought that HYOUDOU was going to solve everything, but now she realizes that it's not like that. There is no point in telling a lie that will comfort you, so I will tell you the truth. Said a voice behind Ria's, to which she quickly turns and goes to Galvan. Ria's, oh, it's just you. She said wearily, to which she simply walks to her room. I don't want to hear anything that isn't useful for catching Albedo. She said coldly. Galvan. This attitude that you show is that of a person who no longer wants to live. He said, to which Ria stopped for a few seconds when she heard those words. I have something that can help you to see the reality of the world. He said calmly, which slowly turned to see Albedo. Ria's. What are you talking about? She asked uncertainly. Galvan. Something that will make you see that not everyone is good in this world and the true color of this world. He said mockingly. Tell this to your brother tomorrow and have him this. They need it now. When it is no longer useful, they will discard it. Those words confused Ria's, but before she could say anything, Galvan left. Without Ria's realizing it, Galvan has put the seed of doubt in her, which is going to bring big problems tomorrow. Returning with Issei HYOUDOU. You can see Artemisa and Elizabeth Lyons carefully placing the bodies of two beautiful girls, where Office Ouroboros was in charge of seeing that the bodies are in perfect condition. Office. Apparently the life of the descendant of Beelzebubs was taken away from the supernatural world, while that of Asmodeus was luxurious, and apparently you wants to bring the demons to their former glory. She warned her mate, who drew a grimace of disgust on his face. Issei. Don't worry, Mummy will have to convince them. He said calmly. After I reveal myself to the factions I'm going to block said transformation. He said with some annoyance of depending on that transformation. Artemisa. It would be wise, master. She said, which attracted the attention of those present. Imagine that someone finds out how he opens our eyes, they will look for a way to destroy him or try to free us. She said with fear of being freed from the hands of her master. Office. You have a point, for the moment place a magic circle that when they revive, they will fall into a dream for a few minutes, this will be your best chance. She said seriously, to which Issei nodded. Issei, still transformed into Alien X, floated for a few seconds, while the bodies of the two girls seemed to rejuvenate at an incredible speed. Elizabeth. Master is amazing with this power. She thought with admiration seeing her master show something never seen before. Artemisa. Isama. Caught Issei's attention. Why are you planning to bring them back before the fight? She asked curiously, to which Issei pauses for a few moments. Issei. Mainly to see the faces of the elders of the council, knowing that the true princesses of the underworld are untouchable for them. He said with mockery, to which some nodded their heads. The office knew that there is also another purpose, and that was to see the gaze of the leaders of the underworld when they saw the girls with the greatest of fears, and if he knew that the power of them and if they needed to mature completely. His presence alone was going to be more than enough to give the demons a morale boost. After that it was seen that the bodies of the two girls were in perfect condition, to which Alien X just snapped his fingers, and they saw how a glow surrounded them, doing so Issei lost the transformation of Alien X. The first is the descendant of Asmodeus, she is an extremely beautiful woman with long silver hair, including eyelashes and eyebrows, which may appear blue or white depending on the surrounding lighting. His eyes were silver colored, apparently reflecting the 7 prismatic colors. She was voluptuous, wore light clothes, which were trimmed with silver threads, and had an unreservedly open neckline. The second was the descendant of Beelzebub, she is a very beautiful girl who stands out for her beauty, with pink thigh-length hair that has a medium lock hanging over the right side of her forehead, dark purple eyes, an extremely curvaceous body, ridiculously large breasts and thin hips. The two were floating in front of those present, apparently the Omnitrix needs a charge for what was coming, so it only remained to wait for a few minutes for the Omnitrix to be able to use it again. While that happens, a magic circle with the symbol of the Leviathan clan could be seen appearing in Elizabeth's ear, where a smile formed on her face. Elizabeth. Isama, I have good news about Ingvald and Valerie. She said with a smile, to which Issei raised an eyebrow. Apparently the seal of Graphia's younger sister Lucifuge was successfully removed, apparently she is very devoted to Valerie. She said with a somewhat forced smile. Issei. This is perfect news. He said seriously, to which the others nodded. By tomorrow I want everyone to wear the best of the best, after all everyone has to give a good appearance. He said with a smile. Understood. They said with a smile, to which Issei noted that the negative Omnitrix was already loaded. Issei. Just wait factions leaders, this is only the beginning of my personal salvation. He thought with a smile. The last thing that was seen that night was a crimson glow, where it was starting new members to the family of Issei HYOUDOU, the current Sekiryuutei. Next day. There were very few hours left for the most anticipated fight for the factions, where it was decided that if the current Sekiryuutei loses, he was going to form an alliance with them, otherwise he was going to stand idly by. Some reporters expected Issei HYOUDOU to appear for an interview, while Dai HYOUDOU with an arrogant smile greets the reporters, but apparently none of them wanted an exclusive with ex-pillar of the factions. The underworld leaders only personally checked the last details if any problems arose, but apparently there were none that they would not notice. Serziches. It's not long until the fight starts. He said seriously, knowing that this fight was going to be transmitted to each of the factions. Serafal. Yes, but because I have to sit next to her. She pointed with annoyance to her rival, who was next to Michael. Serziches. It was Ajuka's idea. He said, to which the aforementioned looked at the eyes of the Mao Beelzebub. And that the voice of the reports is heard, to which they quickly turn to the entrance, where they can see several people walking from one side to the other. Some photographers were attentive. This puzzled those present, such as the leaders, their companions and one or another demon of low, middle or upper class. But there was a small shiver that passed through the back of Serziches Lucifer, Serafal Leviathan, Ajuka Beelzebub and Falbium Asmodeus, awakened by those presences they felt. Some girls like Kaneko Tauju or Sona Citri felt completely jealous of the beauty that those girls radiate, others like Lefay Pendragon or Ravel Phoenix were a little jealous to see that they smiled without any concern. Seraphim Gabriel for a few seconds felt an aura of peace and tranquility, which drew on her face a small smile to recognize what was happening. Like other girls like Asia Argento, Tsubaki Shinra, Momo Hanakai and Ryaku Saka. Other girls like Ria's Gremory and Kuroka were extremely jealous of the presence of those girls. Among all of them they only recognized one girl in particular, and this is Ingvild Leviathan. Her outfit was the same one that gave her that air of an underworld princess. The second girl was wearing a prom dress, 1 foot uncovered, which is a black color with a light purple ribbon. The girl is an extremely beautiful woman with long silver hair, including eyelashes and eyebrows, which may appear blue or white depending on the surrounding lighting. She is Quinella Asmodeus, the descendant of the true Asmodeus, adding to it that she is half human, a killer instinct came from her, and that she uses that sword as an ornament did not help those present, who still did not know her identity, but they already had an idea. The third girl was wearing a beautiful white dress with bare shoulders, white gloves that reached a little above the elbow, gold jewelry and a tiara, a red ribbon with a golden edge. She is Charlotte Beelzebub, the descendant of true Beelzebub, like Ingvild and Quinella. She is also half demon and half human. The aura that came from her was one of love and peace, but it seemed that she is also royalty and elegance. She really looked like a princess. Some like Sarah Erdbale, Riser Phoenix, Saji Genshiro or HYOUDOU Kiba were with their eyes lost in those girls. Quinella. So you are the current mass. She said with an expressionless tone without erasing that slight smile on her face. Serafal. Who are you? She asked with her guard up, to which some looked away out of embarrassment. Quinella. What a lack of manners. She said offended, which brought out a slight laugh to Gabriel. They didn't teach her that if she's going to ask for someone's name, she must introduce herself first, but I think age is affecting her. She said calmly. This caused a vein to appear on her forehead. Serziches. It's a pleasure to meet you, my name is Serziches Lucifer, the current Mao Lucifer. He said with respect and elegance, to which the two girls looked at him carefully. Quinella. Nice to meet you, my name is Quinella Asmodeus. She said calmly. I am the descendant of the original Mao Asmodeus, just like I am half human. She said without giving much importance of who she is. Charlotte. It is also an honor to meet you, my name is Charlotte Beelzebub. She said somewhat nervously, but sure of her words. I am the descendant of the original Mao Beelzebub, and I am half human. She said calmly, which the leaders of the factions were shocked by such a surprise. Saji. And how do they know that they are their descendants? He asked, to which some turned to look at him with a face of disbelief and shame. Quinella. It's easy to tell, after all our aura or presence is practically familiar to them. She calmly pointed to the current mass. Charlotte. You are not a friend of the liar of the factions. He said, to which some stared at her with curiosity to know that detail, but Saji was terrified by those simple words. Quinella. We'd better take care of something else, she said calmly. Saji. Don't be talking lies about me, I'm not friends with that liar Dai HYOUDOU. He said angrily, to which Quinella only managed to draw a small smile. Quinella. Sure, because you don't tell us about why you were his accomplice. She said calmly. Saji. As ordered by my lady. He said with a smitten face. I did it to help Dai Haidu to make his brother look bad, after all he was not worthy of those achievements. He said with blush, but after a few seconds he reacted without remembering what had happened. Surzich's in if he could recognize that ability that Quinella Asmodeus use, apparently it was the Charm Asmodeus clan, it allows her to charm humans who look her in the eye, she can make them fall in love with her or someone else, previously Asmodeus used it to create more devils. In addition, this ability also works with those people with weak wills, apparently Quinella did not like to be spoken to as if they were superior to her. Some thought that she was controlling it, both Ria's Grimory and Surzich's Lucifer had a natural resistance to charm or could detect such power by their Grimory blood that ran through their veins. Surzich's. It's one of Asmodeus's natural abilities. He thought surprised, where he removed the doubt if she was a descendant of Asmodeus. Charlotte didn't seem to pay much attention to her, but then all the leaders noticed that they were coming with Ingvold Leviathan, who she was under Issei Haidu's protection, so some opened their eyes in disbelief. Charlotte. What's with that look of disbelief on their faces? She asked puzzled, to which Quinella only covered her mouth with one hand. Quinella. Apparently they already realized that we are allies of Ice-kun. She said calmly and with a mocking smile on her face. Ingvold. I thought you were going to take longer to react. She said with a pout, to which Quinella just chuckled. Quinella. Don't worry Ingvold, for the moment because you don't indicate our seats. He said calmly, to which Ingvold nodded. Auden. Apparently the boy is well accompanied. He said with a sarcastic tone, as he watched the three descendants leave through one of the corridors. But Issei. Issei Haidu is seen with a look of coldness on his face, while he sees his appearance in a mirror, it was just before the big show, and he was going to give them one that they will never forget. Issei. Here we go Drag, apparently the time has come to show everyone why we dragon feared. He said coldly. Drag. This will get good, but it's a pity that in this fight we show the leaders that their hopes have completely died. He informed his host who couldn't help but smile at those words. Issei. Rather said that they were already dead and that their illusions of believing otherwise were just a simple dream. He thought coldly. Slowly he went to the door, opened it slowly, until he opened the door and left in the direction of the stadium with a single thought, which was to fulfill an objective which was going to change his life and the leaders of the factions. When he was closer to the entrance to the field, he heard the applause and boos to his brother Dai Haidu. The applause was getting louder and louder when he reached the exit of the tunnel and the entrance to the field, only for a few moments he coldly remembered the image of everyone turning their backs on him. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. He said loudly, to which Drake quickly understood what his bearer wanted. Booster Gear Forbidden Scale Mail. He shouted. The audience, the leaders and companions watched as a large draft of air came out of one of the corridors, the pressure was too much, but everyone watched as someone seemed to be floating towards the center, the smoke dissipated, and it was seen that it was Issei Haidu with a balance breaker activated, but more than one was surprised by the power it gave off. Presenter. Welcome dear audience today to the fight of the century. The announcer shouted, the audience increased the volume of their screams more. Today as a presenter I will be today Nod Gamajan. The announcer was introduced to which many applauded. Nod. This will be a 1 versus 1 fight. He said seriously, while the image of Nod is replaced by that of Dai Haidu, then that of Issei Haidu with the balance breaker activated. No one is going to interfere until one gives up or cannot continue. He said seriously, to which many were moved by those words. Dai Haidu was with an arrogant smile watching his brother Issei Haidu, but at that everyone watched as the balance breaker vanishes from one moment to another, revealing the appearance of Issei Haidu in an outfit worthy of an emperor. On Issei's back rested the Ascalon sword in its scabbard, in his right hand one could see in all its splendor the Omnitrix that shone green. Dai when seeing the Omnitrix and the boosted gear in all its glory, did not avoid taking a step back, which was noticed by Issei who only smiled mockingly. Nod. Both will be transferred to a pocket dimension which will be the replica of the city of Kuo. He said. Both will be transported, the current Sekiryuutei Issei Haidu will be in the north and Dai Haidu in the south. He said seriously, to which the two nodded in agreement. 2 circles appearing under Issei Haidu and another under Dai Haidu, which after a few seconds will be an exact replica of Kuo, where Issei only limited himself by looking at his surroundings. Apparently the leaders wanted to make time for the seals to start draining their magic, which would prevent using the boosted gear. Issei. Apparently the seals that drain magic are too weak, that's why they chose the city of Kuo. He thought with annoyance, to which he just set out to walk calmly. As far as I can see, the gravity seals are not activated yet. He thought coldly. In Issei's mind he had planned to make the leaders believe that they had the advantage, it was not yet the time to see the desperate face of the leaders, he wanted to have some fun with his brother first. Dreg. "What are you doing, partner?" he asked. "Issei. It's better to walk than to run than to get tired," he said calmly as he continued walking, which brought out a drop of sweat to Drake for how carefree his host is. Old HYOUDOU was flying while he was trying to find some trace of his brother, but apparently there was no trace of him, which greatly annoyed him for not seeing him anywhere. Where is that bastard?" he asked angrily while looking everywhere, but his brother did not appear. Omnitrix. "Don't worry, I'm going to console you by playing a song with the smallest violin in the world," he said with feigned sadness, which upset Dai for his comment. "I must control myself, with this power I intend to make my brother pay for the humiliation he put me through," he thought coldly, but before leaving his thoughts he could hear Omnitrix's laughter. "Omnitrix. In your dreams, brat, but because you don't accept the cruel reality," he thought coldly, seeing that his wearer had no pride, he wasn't going to feel sorry for him, even though he begged for his life. It only looked like HYOUDOU was starting to fly in the direction of the north, but apparently the fight was only a few minutes away from starting. "Issei. If my brother's presence is still somewhat distant," he said calmly while sitting at the bus stop. "If my brother is desperate to exchange some words," he said with a sarcastic tone as he stands up from the bench. He slowly turned his eyes to the Omnitrix, which had not been activated. He could use XLR8 to completely review the city in less than a few seconds. "Issei. Maybe that place is suitable for fighting, after all it brings back as many good as bad memories," he said calmly as he walked in the direction of the Kuo Park fountain. So he changed direction. While walking he was whistling calmly, he didn't mind getting his brother's attention, because that could be fun. After 30 minutes he arrived at the fountain. Apparently his brother passed straight by without seeing him, to which Issei leaned on one of the benches near the fountain while watching the sky attentively. "Issei. Apparently my brother is missing a lot of training, since he's not going to train for the world without anything in return," he thought disinterestedly. After that thought, HYOUDOU could be seen with a look of annoyance at not finding his brother, but before he could say anything, he felt the presence of his brother coming towards a place that amused him. That place was that source where Issei HYOUDOU's suffering was killed before. The place where I showed you that they prefer me to you," he thought mockingly, to which he quickly flew in that direction. Outside the dimension, where Ingvild Leviathan, Quinella Asmodeus and Charlotte Beelzebub were standing, mainly the first one had a look of disgust on her face, which she wanted to quickly look away from that place, which was noticed by the two remaining girls. "Charlotte. Are you feeling well?" she asked Ingvild, who turned to look at the two girls, where she forced a smile. Ingvild. "It's nothing, it's just that place where I meet Isama, it doesn't bring back good memories," she said with sadness, but mostly disgust. Quinella. "It was at this place, wasn't it?" she asked her with a serious tone, without taking her eyes off the screens of the fight. Ingvild only, nodding her head, before lowering her head sadly. She hated herself remembering that it was in that place that she told Issei not to speak to her again. And that she feels like someone is hugging her. This person was none other than Charlotte, which caused some tears to fall silent from her eyes. Elsewhere you could see the leaders of the factions, more specifically the Gremory group, grimacing in disgust, but the most annoying was none other than Ria's Gremory wanted to destroy that place forever because of the bad memories she feels. "Rafia. Ria-sama, I know you upset, but you better calm down." She called the mentioned one's attention, to which she takes a few minutes to calm down. Athena was seeing the attitude of the Gremory group, so it must be something personal, so she quickly turned her eyes to the front, but at that moment she thought about the words she heard Issei say to Drake. "Athena. What was HYOUDOU talking about with the Sekiryuutei?" She thought for a few moments, since the conversation didn't make sense to her at all. Elsewhere Auden was watching with a serious look on his face the way the fight is going on. There must have been a reason why the Sekiryuutei was taking everything well. Campante. Auden. The boy must be very confident in stopping his brother, or he must know what's going on. He thought the latter with fear when he knew that Issei HYOUDOU knew about the traps. Only people to trust knew, and those people were never going to betray them. Surziches. Everything is in perfect condition. If Issei keeps underestimating his brother and does not finish it quickly, he will make the biggest mistake of his whole life. He thought with some concern, but when he saw Issei HYOUDOU underestimating his brother, it brought a big smile on his face. Isaka. Is it my imagination or the Sekiryuutei has something planned? She thought, seeing the Sekiryuutei's face with such calm and no worry on his face. Returning to the pocket dimension. Issei HYOUDOU is seen with a bored look, but from one moment to another he gets up from his seat, quickly having to dodge a cut that was aimed at his neck. "It's good to see you again, brother, no one is going to save you from me," he said coldly, to which Issei just drew a smile on his face. "Issei. Our battle already ended long time ago," he said with a mocking smile on his face. "Well, I'm here for a rematch," he said coldly, to which Issei only looked at him with a look of amusement on his face. Issei. You were already late, haha. He laughed funny, in that you can see how Dai throws himself into hitting Issei. Dai tried to slice Issei in two, but he quickly jumps into the air, where two wings come out of his back. Issei. You've become stronger, brother, he said with a smile, seeing his brother below him. Dai. It won't be like that time, now I'm much stronger than you and I'm going to prove it to you, he said with an arrogant smile, to which Issei simply shook his head. Issei. When you are gonna realize, the more you take, the less you have, he said with feigned sadness on his face, before seeing his brother fly in his direction with the intention of cutting him in two. He seems to want to kill me, and with Ascalon, he thinks it will be easier, he thought coldly, before seeing how his brother was a few centimeters away from him. Issei quickly appears on top of him to give him an axe kick, which causes him to crash to the ground. Issei quickly summons Ascalon in his right hand, where they both begin to fight sword against sword. Apparently they were even, neither of them gave in to the other. Quickly Issei, when he saw his brother off guard, gave him a blow all over the stomach. Dai spat saliva by the blow of Issei, besides he was thrown back by the force of the blow. Issei. Not bad at all, brother, but maybe it seems that in the end they did something right with you, he said with mockery. They knew how to tighten the strap, or am I wrong? He asked with a mocking tone, seeing his brother get up with an angry look on his face. Die. Bastard, he said angrily, as he didn't see Issei's blow coming, to which he quickly summoned his sacred gear, with the intention of gaining more advantage over his brother. Issei. That's the way it is, I want to play too, he said with a fun tone, to which he quickly invokes his sacred gear. He quickly flies out in the direction of his brother, where he starts hitting him in the stomach with that mocking smile on his face, in addition to giving him a knee with his foot, with which he was thrown against one of the nearest buildings in the park. Issei. Come on, brother, that shouldn't have defeated you, he said mockingly. After all, with that hatred you have for me. As he looks curiously at the direction in which his brother crashed. Greg. Yes, you have fun, partner, but leaving aside this, the gravity seals are going to activate at any moment. He said it in the thoughts of his bearer, to which the latter simply nodded his head. Issei. In that case it's time to take out the heavy weapons, he said mockingly, before carefully watching the boosted gear and letting out a heavy sigh. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker, he said loudly. Greg. Booster gear Forbidden Scale Mail, he shouted. Slowly the armor with green jewels began to cover his brother's body with utmost tranquility. HYOUDOU was barely getting up in the rubble. His brother had no compassion with that blow. Apparently he broke his nose because of that knee on his face. That bastard is going to pay back. I plan to return every blow he gave me 1,000 times stronger, he said angrily, while looking out. Where he could see his brother with the balance breaker activated, he quickly draws a smile at the thought that his brother is making a serious mistake. Crescent Circle Dragon Balance Breaker, he said coldly, to which Kromkruich shook his head at the stupidity his wielder was committing. Kromkruich. Cursed Moon Scale Mail, he said without much desire, but in the end he had no other choice. Issei. So a copy of the boosted gear balance breaker wants to confront me, he said with mockery, which annoyed Dai for such words. But that can be expected from a hypocrite like you, he said coldly, seeing his brother on the ground. Dai. It's the end, after all, with this power I have now I am superior to you, he said with mockery. King Piece activate. Activated the King Piece inside him, he said it in a low voice, but Issei, thanks to his enhanced senses, could hear it clearly. Dai rose into the air to be at the same height as his brother, where the two gazed at each other for a moment before starting to fly at full speed against each other. Both of them hit each other on the face with all their might, while Issei only looked at this with a smile on his face. On the other hand, HYOUDOU was incredulous to see that his punch had the same force as a punch from his brother. Greg. I feel sorry for your brother, I really don't feel anything, you're not really fighting after all, he said to his host in his mind, since Issei never asked him for a raise or the use of other of his abilities. HYOUDOU quickly separates from his brother, where he could see that his brother only looked at him with a bored look on his face, where Issei removes the helmet from his balance breaker. Issei. Don't tell me that's all your power, after all you're together with the features sealed the Trahixa, he said mockingly. Wait, you were just an achievement thief, haha. He laughed, then covered his face again. Hearing those words, got too angry and went to attack his brother with an angry look on his face, where he started throwing punches without thinking. Issei dodges them as if nothing, which only seemed to not strive for anything in the world. The leaders of the factions viewed such a fight seriously. The seals seemed not to work, but according to the reports of some soldiers and magicians, the seals seemed to work perfectly. After a few seconds, HYOUDOU started to hit slower, to which Issei only hits him again, where he broke the helmet of his balance breaker. Apparently HYOUDOU was wasting a lot of power. Issei. it's time to start the show drag. He thought with a mocking smile on his face, since he had something planned, but for this he had to deactivate the seals that were activated in the pocket dimension. Issei slowly lowered to the ground, before the gaze of those present. Under the helmet Issei took a deep breath for what was coming next. He looked at his hands very calmly. Issei. You know, the greatest hatred is in the heart of a good person, after being destroyed. He said coldly in his voice, while a dull red aura slowly surrounded him. I had to train day and night until all my bones were broken. Who denied me the dream of being a hero? He said sadly. All the spectators saw how the image of the Sekiryuutei appeared, but some noticed how tears fell from the emerald gems that were the eyes of the boosted gear helmet. The opaque aura surrounding Issei HYOUDOU began to increase greatly. Everyone saw that the armor turned completely black for a few moments, until it looked like a shadow. A girl among the spectators was Valerie Lucifer, who recognized that aura and knew what his master was planning. At that precise moment Issei only started walking in the direction of his brother, who was backing up for every step his brother took, mainly because of the voice that was screaming at him in his mind. It was fear in its purest essence. I, who am about to awaken. It started. Looks like it will start. I'm the heavenly dragon who has stolen the principles of domination from God. It was always like that, no matter what. That's not right, it was like that every time. I laugh at the infinite and I fret over the dream. The one the world seeks circumflex euros. The one the world rejects. I shall become the red dragon of domination. It was always power. It was always love. You guys choose destruction no matter how many times. And I shall sink you to the depths of the crimson purgatory. Juggernaut drive. His roar made the pocket dimension rumble, where the seals shone for a few moments, then each one went off. The seals had been turned off by hearing the curse chant, which was none other than Juggernaut drive, therefore it was not a blow to morale, but it was 2 blows. But the faction leaders. All the leaders along with some companions were looking at the scene with terror, since in that way it allows him to use 50% of Drake's sealed power, but now they felt that that was a lie. It was 100% Drake's power, there was no doubt about it. Surzich's. That power, there is no doubt that it is the same of Drake in all its glory. He said incredulously, while watching the Juggernaut drive on the screens. Shemhaz I. Forget that Surzich's. He said seriously, attracting the attention of the others. The problem will be if Issei HYOUDOU can control such a form. He said worried, to which many nodded their heads. Athena. Father, if this continues like this we will have to interfere. She said worried, to which her father Zeus simply gritted his teeth at that possibility. Riaz. That power. She said with fear, since Issei HYOUDOU's aura gave off a killer instinct that prevented her from moving, and she was not the only one. Athena. Why didn't I see it earlier? He's just playing with us. She thought with frustration when she realized that Issei HYOUDOU was not taking them seriously. Returning to the pocket dimension. HYOUDOU was angry when he saw his brother with that power, but after a few seconds he chuckled when he saw that his brother made a serious mistake, to which he only limited himself to making fun of his brother. You made a big mistake brother by having all that power. He said mockingly, thinking that his brother had become slower in that way. And that for wanting to eliminate his brother creates a sphere between his hands. With that mocking smile, he thought it was going to be easy to eliminate his brother. Take this brother. He shouted while launching a version of his brother's attack, but before he could launch it, he saw how a stone of his size crashed against his attack, where said attack exploded, creating a cloud of smoke. I was annoyed by that action of his brother, but even more annoyed by underestimating his brother. Before he could walk away, he could see how the smokescreen dissipated, where he saw his brother about to give him a hammer blow that was going to bury him in the ground. He quickly turned on the thrusters on his back, but when he didn't measure the power well, he flew against some skyscrapers, where he literally passed through 3 buildings. All the spectators watched in fear as Issei HYOUDOU destroyed the buildings as if nothing had happened, but more specifically he was looking for his brother. HYOUDOU was trying to get his bearings, as the blow disoriented him. He was furious at the humiliation his brother was giving him as if he were a giant and an ant. Damn you. He said angrily, as he barely got up from the ground, he could see his fractured foot. He quickly took out a phoenix tear from a pocket dimension to heal said wound. At that he feels a slight tremor where he was. He quickly turns to where the hole he had made was because of his brother's blow. In front of him was Issei with the Juggernaut drive activated to maximum power. Curse you. He said angrily, while preparing an attack again. Dark shoot. He said angrily. His attack hit in the face of the Juggernaut drive, which caused Issei to fall to the ground, where he caused a tremor that was felt outside the pocket dimension. Shot out of that place where he flew to a safe distance and began to throw several dark shoot against his brother, who seemed not to defend himself from those attacks, which caused a smoke screen. Yes, that will be enough. he said with a mocking smile at the thought that his brother with those attacks was defeated. But apparently he said it very soon. When the smokescreen dissipated, you could see Issei HYOUDOU with the juggernaut drive intact, which he turned to see his brother, where he shot out like a bullet in the direction of his brother, where when he arrived he punched him all over the body. Not only that, to further boost his attack, he hit him with another punch while he was falling to the ground. I could barely get up from the ground, where he could see Issei landing a few meters near him, but the wounds on him were extremely painful. He felt that at any moment he was going to faint. Slowly Issei was getting closer to him, where he held him with his 2 hands, while Dai seemed to scream in pain from his injuries. Issei. Ha ha ha. He let out a laugh at hearing those words. No way would I let the juggernaut drive take away my sanity, after all I'm the forbidden existence. Those words shocked everyone, except certain people, but one person at the base was laughing at those words. Plumber's base. There was a girl dressed in gothic loli who was giggling at Issei HYOUDOU's performance. This girl was none other than Office Ouroboros, one of Issei lovers who had a mocking smile on her face. Office. Show them what a dragon can do, lie Issei, she said with a mocking tone, thinking about the face that the leaders of the factions had because of Issei's performance. Next to Office were 2 girls in particular, each of them with some characteristics in common, their silver or white hair along with red eyes. The 2 girls are the descendants of Lucifuge. Office. It's entertaining this fight, don't you think? She said, as he took some potatoes and put them in his mouth. The first girl has the appearance of a girl with pale skin and long white hair. She usually has her hair arranged in a queue that goes around her neck, but still it reaches her lower back. Her eyes are red, but she always keeps them closed. Her name is Shireori Lucifuge, one of the younger sisters of Grafia Lucifuge, if her devotion was for the Lucifer family, which in this case is to Valerie Lucifer. The next one is a beautiful white-skinned young woman with silver hair down to below the knee, red eyes that have long eyelashes, bright pink lips and a trained voluptuous body. Her name is Aine Lucifuge, Shireori's older sister and Grafia Lucifuge's younger sister, who only occasionally watched the fight with a bored look on her face. Apparently the seal where a descendant of Lucifuge was supposed to be was actually one where both girls were in a state of suspended animation. Shireori. It's as entertaining, but I find it funny how the faction's tool is a badly what a joke. She said with boredom, to which Office only shook her head in amusement at those words. Aine. What can you expect from a coward like him? She said, and then took a bite of an apple, an action that was imitated by her younger sister. Returning with Issei HYOUDOU. The leaders along with their guests, the DXD group, could not believe what they were seeing, as they previously thought that Issei had lost his mind, but he is here in front of them, admitting that he was just acting and behaving like a monster. Die. You are a fucking monster, one of which you will not live forever. He said in frustration when he saw the beating his brother was giving him. Issei. Those are your apologies. He said with a curt tone, which raised doubts to the viewers as of the faction leaders. Die. What do you mean? You don't know what glory is, because after all I enjoy it and you don't. He said coldly, at that he feels like his bones are crushed again. You should apologize for being a monster. He said angrily. Issei. Why should I apologize for the monster I've become? He said angrily, which made Dai nervous. No one apologized for making me like this. He said coldly, which made Dai HYOUDOU gulped. I did not know what to say to his brother's comment, in that he feels like falling to the ground, since Issei HYOUDOU was returning to normal without his balance breaker activated. Dai HYOUDOU could not get up from the ground because of all the injuries caused by his brother. Issei HYOUDOU slowly approached his brother, where he only saw him with an emotionless look, where he didn't think twice and put his hand on his brother's head. Omnitrix. Severe genetic damage detected. Said a voice coming from the Omnitrix, which drew the attention of those present. Genetic code error. Said the Omnitrix again. Do you want to repair it? The device asked, to which Issei only looked his brother with a confused look on his face. Issei. Yes, it's time to end all this, he said coldly, before the Omnitrix activates automatically. An emerald flash shone with intensity, which attracted the attention of those present, in that everyone saw how in Issei HYOUDOU's hand was a piece that scared the leaders of the factions, as well as some high-class devils. The object in his hand was none other than a king piece, capable of strengthening whoever carries it. It is possible by a magnitude of 10 or 100, since it can raise a high-class devil to a power comparable to that of the ultimate class, and even strengthen some users to the powers of the Satan class. Issei. Look brother, I come looking for copper, and I've found gold. He said with mockery, while showing the piece in the face to his brother, who looked at him with terror because of that revelation. Die. Give that back, it belongs to me. He said nervously, to which Issei chuckled at his brother's words. Issei. No brother, I doubt you would be able to steal something like this, since they are under the protection of Ajuka Beelzebub. He said with a mocking tone. Don't tell me that the leaders gave you such a piece so you could defeat me. he said sarcastically. I didn't know what to say by those words, to which he simply looked away from his brother. But the leaders. At that moment the leaders felt the real terror, but more the current mass, they didn't know what look to put. Others like Sekiryuutei Baylor Sikvera Gares looked at everything with a look of surprise, while the look of Riaz Gremory and Sona Sitri was one that they refused to believe the cruel truth. Gabriel. Brother. She said barely audible, to which Michael lowered his head in shame. That's why you wanted me to avoid using my ability. She said coldly, to which Michael did not answer. Seraphol. You can't understand. She said coldly, to which the Seraphim turned to look at her. Gabriel. Wanting to use an innocent person to solve our problems. She said coldly, to which Seraphol was going to excuse himself, but she couldn't think of anything. Serziches. Apparently there is no other choice left. He said with a lowered gaze, as he sees Issei HYOUDOU with the king piece in his hands. Asia. They did it because they wanted him to defend them against Albedo. She said with surprise and horror on her face, to which all the leaders turned to look at her. Gabriel. That's what Asia looks like. They knew they couldn't beat him cleanly, so they decided to attack him from behind. She said coldly, which upset a certain god. Zeus. You'd better shut up, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to save my people. He said coldly, to which Gabriel gave a cold countenance. Gabriel. Well, tell that to your people, since their reputation is already on the floor and with this they will sink even more. She said with a mocking tone. Since Issei HYOUDOU has the people in his side and you with this action only increase his credibility that we are not worthy of being leaders. She said with mockery and sarcasm. Athena. It's because maybe you don't care about your people. She said coldly, to which the seraph only looked at her for a few moments. Gabriel. Don't forget that you can't trust everyone. She said scornfully. Lucifer himself before becoming the devil was an archangel, and Judas before being a traitor was a disciple. She said with a cutting tone. Besides, you just wanted to be close to him to confirm if he worked with Albedo. Tell me what it feels like, do you want it to backfire? She asked with a mocking tone, which annoys the goddess of wisdom. Without waiting for an answer the seraphim Gabriel left, where everyone was processing what was happening. At that a soldier of the demons arrived in a hurry with a worried look on his face. Soldier. Lord Serziches, something bad is happening. He said with concern, to which everyone turns to see him. Serziches. What's going on? He asked seriously, to which the soldier took a deep breath. Soldier. The seals have been deactivated for a long time. He said nervously, many felt that something was breaking inside everyone. The words did not leave his lips. Dai Haidu only watched with terror as his brother took that power away from him, so he tried to crawl away from his brother's sight, while Issei only shook his head at the look of despair on his little brother's face, so he only let him go for the moment. Issei. Come on brother, you're not going to get up to keep playing with your big bro ha. He said with a mocking tone, to which his brother hurried to crawl away from his brother. I must guess that you don't know how to use this power correctly, but it's a pity, but don't worry, I'll put it to better use. He said with a mocking smile, attracting everyone's attention. At that Issei takes the piece calmly and brings it closer to the Omnitrix symbol, where it begins to float. Quickly the piece began to turn quickly. The Omnitrix for a moment seemed to go to its old version, to which Issei remained observing said update. After a few seconds the Omnitrix seemed to be modified in slow motion for everyone. An emerald glow surrounded the Omnitrix, and then it was seen that the king piece had completely disappeared. The Omnitrix has corrected the errors and activated the complete evolutionary function. This attracted the attention of many, to which Issei only chuckled at the update. The Omnitrix will be modified when it is rebooted. Issei. They don't know how I'm going to enjoy it. He said with a smile, before activating the Omnitrix to see his brother healing with a phoenix tear. I hope he has another phoenix tear. He thought with a mocking smile, to which he started walking in the direction of his brother. The Omnitrix shone with an emerald hue, but Issei simply decided not to use it, so he approached his brother with great tranquility, who was slowly getting up from the ground. Issei. Come on brother, get up, until I finish humiliating you. He said coldly. Die. Give me back my power, that power was given to me. He said angrily, to which Issei just chuckled. Unbeknownst to him, Dai Haidu was just sinking the faction leaders with every word that came out of his mouth, who wanted to stop the fight, but apparently if they did they were going to look like cowards. Issei. Your power, don't make me laugh brother, they were just using you to defeat me and accept their stupid alliance with me. He said coldly, while taking the piece from the sweater, where he picked it up with great ease. They just wanted to turn me into a tool to protect some hypocritical people. He said coldly, before releasing it. I hide you. Before touching the ground, he feels like a kick connects in his stomach that throws him several meters away. A particular goddess averted her gaze with shame for those words that are more than the harsh truth. Issei. Where is your arrogance that you boasted so much? he said coldly, to which HYOUDOU only limited himself to looking up from him to his brother. Damn, you just don't understand that I am superior to you, after all I am now. He could not finish speaking when interrupted by his brother. Issei. Not anymore. He said with a cutting tone, which puzzled Dai. You're not a devil, no more Dai, it's over, you've become a human again. He said calmly, to which Dai opened his eyes unable to believe what he was hearing. Dai. No, you must be kidding, it's a joke, isn't it? He asked in fear as he got up from the ground, shaking his head at the words his brother mentioned. Issei. Fool, when the Omnitrix corrected your DNA, it took away your reincarnated devil part. He said calmly, to which Dai simply took a step back. Dai. Give me back my power, all that I rightfully am. He said angrily as he lunges to hit Issei, who stops his blow with his open palm. Issei. You can't demand anything from me, after all I have to teach you manners for doing silly things. He said coldly as he passed by his brother. Dai. Don't you care about me, mother, father, sister, I'm your brother. He said with fear, to which Issei denied with a finger. Issei. I don't give a fuck. He said as he coldly looks at Dai. Dai. Wait. He could not finish speaking when he saw his brother hit him with an incredible speed on his chin that raised him in the air. After that blow he hit him in the stomach several times until he gave him a hard blow that sent him flying in the air again. Issei. There is neither good nor evil, there is only power and people too weak to seek it. He said coldly. Greatness inspires envy, envy breeds resentment, and resentment breeds lies. He said with a cutting tone while his brother was trying to get up from the ground with difficulty. Dai. You know what it means, you're just a bastard because you didn't stay quiet and let me enjoy my moment. He said angrily as he falls to his knees on the floor. Issei. There's little brother, he said with feigned sadness while lightly patting his brother on the cheek. Meanwhile, one girl in particular was watching the confrontation with a look of total sadness. She couldn't believe that her two brothers are fighting, but it made her more angry to see that the leaders supported the bad twin and the good one they had planned to turn him into a tool. That girl is HYOUDOU, a girl who has long orange-brown hair with bangs that cover her face with two strands that protrude from the rest of her hair, along with a small and unique ponytail on the back of her head that leaves the rest of her hair long and reddish. Brown eyes. She also has a slender figure and ample breasts. Tiamat. Finally that brat got what he deserved. She told her seriously in her mind, to which Aiko only lowered her head in shame. It hurts you to see the truth, but that's what provoked his decisions. She said with a mocking tone. Aiko. I know, but I can't allow Dai to be killed. I don't understand what the leaders were thinking by giving him that power. She thought disappointed of the leaders, to which Tiamat just stayed silent for a moment. Tiamat. You can't interfere, Aiko, this is a matter between them, and I doubt those idiots of leaders will try anything. She told her host. HYOUDOU slowly turned to see the leaders, but she was surprised that they were with a look of shame on their face. It seemed that HYOUDOU's words were sinking them with no way out, while HYOUDOU's were a severe blow to their pride. There is no way they can correct their mistakes, said a voice coming from behind Aiko's back. Aiko slowly turned her head, where she could see Valerie Lucifer, who was walking with a look of boredom, but before Aiko could say anything, Valerie was ahead of her. Valerie. I know what you're going to tell me, but I realize that I can't always depend on others to solve my problems. She said calmly, which puts the Tiamat hosts was silent. Valerie Lucifer only let out a heavy sigh when she saw her team, but then the moment came to her mind when they were behaving in the same way as the faction leaders. Valerie. Apparently I was too blind to realize my mistake. She felt like an idiot to think that she could have been one of them by being part of that plan to put a leash on her master. After all, Issei the only showed her the truth. At that moment the sound of a thud is heard, where they turn their eyes to the screens. They observe with fear how HYOUDOU had his head embedded in a wall. Returning with HYOUDOU. Issei only walked slowly. Everyone watched as tears fell from his face. He slowly pulled his brother out of the wall, forced him to look into his eyes, where HYOUDOU was about to lose consciousness. Issei. Why did you do it? He asked with fake sadness, which Dai could not answer for that question. It was more the fame for which you turned your back on your own Oni-chan. Pathetic. Said Drake. Dai. Mercy. He whispered in a low voice, to which Issei only chuckling at those words. Issei. You talk about piety. He said without being able to believe it. Being funny doesn't suit you, my guy. He said coldly, to which he gulped for those words. Dai. Mercy. He said more forcefully, but Issei did not pay attention to him. Mercy. He shouted with all his might, his voice echoed in the pocket dimension. Issei. Why? This caught the attention of his brother, who fell silent. I had 2 surprises planned for you, but apparently only one of them is going to work with people like you. He said coldly. Slowly he let go. He started walking away from his brother, who turned to look at him slowly. He did not understand what his brother was doing, but he saw how he got to a specific part. Issei. This place will be perfect. He said with a mocking smile. You see this building, brother, it will be our last round, I'll wait for you upstairs. He said mockingly before taking out his wings and flying to the rooftop. When Issei HYOUDOU arrived at the rooftop, he set out to check the Omnitrix, looking for a specific transformation. Apparently this transformation was going to be a hard blow. He wondered what Ben Tennyson would feel if he saw such a transformation in the Omnitrix. Issei. Sorry, Ben Tennyson. He said with boredom, since knowing his brother, he will want to make time to set a trap for him. Greg. In the end it was not necessary to use the new transformation. He said in Issei's mind, to which he just nodded his head. Issei. That's right, Greg, but at least the next surprise he will never be able to forget, after all it will be his new nightmare. He thought mockingly, to which Drake just chuckled. Greg. You are truly a devil, Mr. HYOUDOU. He said with amusement, to which Issei could not help laughing derisively at his partner in crime comment. Issei. I think that's enough of this farce, tell me Drake, what would happen if I reformed the world in my image? He told him in his mind. Greg. It will be amazing, but I don't think you're just referring to the supernatural world. He mentioned to his host, to which Issei thought looking up and seeing the fake sky of the pocket dimension. Issei. I don't want to conquer the world, that would be too much work, I want both worlds to be able a better one. He mentioned the Welsh dragon to him. Greg. Don't forget partner, that to build a better world, sometimes you have to tear down the previous one. He said, to which Issei knew what he had to do. Issei. I understand Drake, but to destroy this world I must destroy all supernatural beings who believe themselves superior to humans or who threaten the peace of this world. He thought coldly, to which Drake agreed with those words of his host. 30 minutes later. HYOUDOU is seen to open the door that went straight to the rooftop with fear. He slowly enters and can see his brother sitting on the floor. Issei. I thought you were going to take longer, brother. He said with boredom. You know I was also thinking coming for you. He said with a mocking tone. Die. You are a monster. He said coldly, while trying to stand his ground. But with this, I will be able to kill you without a doubt. He said with a crazy smile, while summoning Ascalon in his hands. Issei only looked at him with sigh with that sword in his hands. For a moment I swore to see the same image of death leaning on his brother's back. Slowly the sound of someone getting up was heard. That person was Issei HYOUDOU, watching as his brother points the sword at his face, to which he just denies with his head what was coming next. Die. Enough, you're dead. He said coldly, before rushing to cut off his brother's head. Die. Shouted a few inches close to his brother, the sword was glowing brightly. The sound of an explosion was heard, where a huge smokescreen could be seen rising. All the spectators couldn't believe what they were seeing. Issei HYOUDOU had stopped his brother's attack with 2 of his fingers. Issei only kicked him with his foot, where he dropped the sword. Issei just threw it to the ground as if nothing, while Dai was on the verge of falling to the ground. Dai. Don't think you're going to be able to beat me, this fight will be mine. He said with a crazy smile, as he throws himself to hit Issei, who received him with a knee. The knee pushed him a few meters away from his brother, where Issei did not wait for anything to take him by the neck and lift him up. Issei. You're still weak. He said coldly and a lifeless look on his face. You don't hate me enough. The tone that said it was as if he was still in the Juggernaut drive. Dai slowly raised his head. I'll tell you something, brother. He said quietly. You will never be a god. He said with a smile. Issei was holding his brother, where when he let go he was going to let him fall off the edge. Dai was about to faint, but Issei wouldn't let him. Issei. And let me show you the true way. He said mockingly, as the smile on his face was fading from his face. Omnitrix, access to the new transformation unlocked. He said seriously, to which the Omnitrix flashed brightly. Omnitrix. Access granted. The device said, as the dial moves slowly until the transformation he wants is activated. An emerald glow covers the chestnut, but now it was totally different. The eyes of said transformation for a moment shone a red color, before turning green. His form was a humanoid, but everyone could tell that said form was that of a warrior. Everyone could appreciate this transformation. It is a humanoid creature with a face similar to that of an octopus. He has tentacles hanging down the front of his face, like a beard. Its skin is pale green with yellowish spots on the face and tentacles. He has no visible nose or ear. He has green eyes. He has spikes on his shoulders. He wears a kind of black t-shirt with black fingerless gloves with green edges. The symbol of the Omnitrix he wears on his waist in a kind of belt. Meet Gax. He said with a mocking tone, to which Dai couldn't believe it, but at that his brother throws him in the air, above the building. At that Issei flies straight to his brother and grabs him by the neck. Dai understood what his brother was about to do. Dai. Don't do it, I give up, please help, I give up. He shouted with all his might, but before the security system could do anything, it was already too late, so his screams were forgotten. Issei. Fear can lead to anger, anger to hatred, and hatred to suffering. And right now I'm feeling a lot of fear in you. They were the last words Dai heard before being slammed to the ground at the hands of his brother. Issei mercilessly took him by the neck and used him as his shock absorber. All the spectators saw with terror on his face how Issei in that transformation did not heed the pleas of his brother. The building was divine in two. Slowly the building collapses. No one said anything. The demons, or all those who saw the fight, were terrified by Issei's strength. But the leaders put their hands to their mouths, realizing that Issei HYOUDOU was not going to tempt himself to help them. The worst person who saw this massacre was Seraphim Leviathan, who looked away in terror. Well, the Seraphim Gabriel only lowered her head, but not out of sadness or anything like that, if not so that no one would see the smile that was engraved on her face. Apparently she was not the only one, among them the people who were opened her eyes by Issei HYOUDOU. Seraphim. He had no mercy. She said incredulously, while trying not to vomit, but Ajuka seemed attentive to the debris. Ajuka? I don't think an alien has survived a fall like that, he said, to which he drew the attention of those present. No one could believe what they were hearing. Athena also saw this with a serious look, but for some reason she couldn't help but smile, not because of the possible stupidity that Issei HYOUDOU committed, but because of the fate of Dai HYOUDOU. But she quickly looks carefully at the screen showing the huge smoke screen. Surziches. Apparently you are right, the best will be. He could not finish speaking, as a shadow was visible through the smoke screen. All the leaders, along with the DXD group, could not believe what they were seeing. Issei HYOUDOU, still transformed into Gax, was standing as if nothing. No wound was visible on his body. They saw how he had his right hand raised in the form of victory, with his gaze lowered, but everyone could see that he was conscious. Odin. The brat does not die with anything, he said with a bitter smile on his face. Zeus, on the other hand, only saw the sign of Issei as a mockery to him. Zeus. That damn human. He thought angrily when he saw Issei rejoicing in front of him. He clenched his fists because of the frustration he felt at that moment. Athena. Incredible. Thought the goddess of wisdom. She felt how her heart was beating fast. Others like Shemhazai just looked away, but he was frustrated that such a plan will not work, to have the Sekiryuutei among the ranks of the alliance, and to be able to face Albedo. Nod. The winner of this match is Issei HYOUDOU with a brutal fall from the heights, he shouted. Some who saw the truth of Dai HYOUDOU clapped with joy when they saw Issei HYOUDOU's victory. In Asgard, you could see a woman who had an 18-year-old appearance. Her beauty could attract many. She wears a blue officer's uniform with a skirt, black stockings and blue high-heeled knee-high boots. She is seen smoking a kiseru. For a few seconds she pushes the kiseru away from her lips and smiles in a mocking way when she sees Issei HYOUDOU's victory. This woman was none other than Gondel. Gondel. Idiots, the way Isama destroyed them is a real work of art, she thought with a smile from ear to ear. And if she wanted to see the face of her granddaughter Roswas, and if it was her turn to comfort her after learning the truth of the real face of Dai HYOUDOU. Gondel. What I have to endure, I want to stop acting and show my loyalty to my master, she thought with frustration to continue acting, but quickly denied those thoughts from her mind. At least they were not going to suspect her for a good reason. To deactivate such seals lasts a few hours. After that the seals become activated, and they will not notice an error that does not exist if the seals are restarted instantly. Gondel. Now to fulfill the mission I was ordered, she thought calmly, to start walking to a specific direction. More specifically to Hamadin's castle, with the intention of taking some minerals that were going to be necessary to his master. At the base of the plumbers office is seen rolling on the floors before the pathetic display of power by the Kromkruch wielder. In itself it was a pity that Dai HYOUDOU was his host, but you can't have everything in life. Office. The end. People like him make me sick, she said, while wiping away tears for a few minutes now. Bane. I thought the Sekiryuutei was going to use his new transformation, she said curiously, to which Office simply shook her head at these words. Office. He is a chimera sui generis from the planet Bulgaxia, she said calmly. His teacher told me that they are extremely strong and can fight their other transformations, except for some of them, she said seriously, to which Ain was surprised. Shireori. But I feel like there's more, isn't there? Catching Office's attention, which she didn't answer, which was enough of a response for Shireori. Ain. And what's next after this? She pointed out a point to be stressed, to which Office simply smiled with a sinister smile on her face. Office. Prepare for the start of a new great war, she said coldly, to which she drew the attention of the girls by such words. Ain. Well, you know that if Valerie supports that boy, we will do the same, she said coldly, to which Office nodded her head. Office. Apparently they can't be trusted at all. she thought coldly, which is why she should discuss this topic with her mate. With nothing to say office, she left the room realizing that everything he had to say had already been said. At Kuo Academy. You can see Albedo at the Kuo Academy together with Sublimino, who were hypnotizing some teachers, and then record them to give a harder blow at the Kuo Academy, and apparently it is working successfully. While on the other side we can see a thin and petite young woman. She has wavy light green hair that reaches halfway down her back with 2 strands framing her face, as well as a set of strands that darken most of her forehead, with a prominent strand in the middle reaching to the top of her nose. She has big dark green eyes with long eyelashes. Apparently he was trying to find the cause of all the problems to help Zenobia Quarta, which was in the underworld watching the fight between Issei HYOUDOU against HYOUDOU, which was made a mess of chasing the 2 cause of this huge disaster. Damn, maybe they like to steal people's free will. She said angrily, as she looked for the culprit with her gaze, but she didn't see anyone. On the second floor you could see Albedo shaking his head at the attitude of the girl who was trying to stop them. Apparently the girl was going to be a big problem. Albedo. Apparently I'll have to take care of her. He said with boredom, while taking a kind of bucket from his back. Sublimino. I'll leave that to you, you know I'm not a good fighter, he said seriously, to which Albedo nodded his head. Albedo. Don't worry, we're not going to fight her, mainly because she's a devil. He said seriously. I need to borrow your watch. He said seriously, to which Sublimino raised an eyebrow at what Albedo request. Sublimino. Okay. He said uncertainly, in that he saw how the cube that Albedo was bringing with him merged with his watch, which made him open his eyes with surprise. Albedo. We don't have time, so listen carefully to what we are going to do. He said seriously, to which Sublimino quickly shook his head and paid attention to him Albedo plan. After a few minutes, the girl is seen to search carefully in every room of the Kuo Academy, but apparently she did not find him the cause of all this. In that you hear how some speakers or loudspeakers begin to emit a strange sound, to which you quickly pay attention to what is happening. To anyone who wants to know who I am, please go to the gym. He said with an authoritative tone, to which the girl raises an eyebrow at the word she hear at that moment. After all, you does not want to know who is the person causing all this. He said with a mocking tone, to which the girl is annoyed by those words. Without saying more, it was heard as the speakers and neighbors were turned off, the girl quickly walked into the gym, intending to intercept him, but without knowing what was about to happen. When I arrived at the gym she noticed that the lights were turned off, which she entered carefully so as not to attract attention. This is so annoying, she said to herself, seeing that this scene looked like something out of one of those old movies. At that she hears the sound of something going in her direction, to which the girl quickly puts herself on the defensive, only to see that a toy was apparently coming out of the shadows, of which it was a doll carrying a watch, which was covered by a note. Those fuckers, they must have escaped and I here with this stupid toy. He said coldly, as he takes the toy in his hands, but more specifically to take the note. Slowly I take the note carefully, but with curiosity here at it, but I miss him the words that were written on the note. Note. May he have good dreams. Apparently the note was not complete, but she did not give it importance and saw the toy with a look of annoyance, but quickly turned her eyes to the watch that the doll was carrying. What a horrible toy. She said with frustration, but in that she watches the clock presses the clock button, so she thought it was going to be to sound some kind of alarm. At that it was heard as something fell to the ground. That toy was none other than Albedo himself, who pretended to be a toy. Apparently the improvement he gave to the watch was powerful. Minutes later. Sublimino is seen running straight to the gym, but in that the sound of several footsteps is heard, to which he gulped, in that he sees the girl who was chasing them. You should not worry my friend, now he is on our side to continue the chaos. He said with mockery, to which he Sublimino attentively pays attention and sees on the girl's right shoulder Albedo with a smile of superiority on his face. Sublimino. Damn you. He cursed Albedo for the fright he got at the thought that he had been caught. Albedo. Don't worry, but I have the right person to kill certain people and go unnoticed. He said seriously, while the girl continued with a lost look on her face. Apparently the creation of demons was inefficient, but I am Albedo, and I can fix that mistake. He said with an arroganter tone. Sublimino. The best thing will not be to withdraw from this place. He said seriously, to which Albedo agreed with his words. Albedo. You're right. He said seriously. It's time to leave and he ordered us to leave this place. He said seriously, to which the girl nodded with an expressionless face on her face. The last thing that was seen in that place was how the Kuo Academy, or rather teachers, started taking out their cell phones and started broadcasting live what was about to happen. The girl whom Albedo managed to hypnotize was none other than one of the 100,000 artificial devils that were created by Hades using Lilith's flesh and the Book of Lucifer Morningstar. She is one of the 2 devils who are born with the power of a super devil. Her name is Varine, a candidate for the peerage of Zenobia Court, or rather an ex-candidate. Apparently Albedo made her an offer that the girl could not help but accept if she stayed on the side of the winners of this new war that is coming later. Returning with Issei HYOUDOU. It was seen how a blue flash surrounded HYOUDOU and melted into particles of the same color. Apparently the security system finally took effect while Issei appeared in the stadium. An emerald glow covered it for a moment, and there stood Issei HYOUDOU with that mocking smile on his face. Issei. Now it's your turn, faction leaders. He thought with a challenging look, seeing the room where the leaders were. But he quickly turns his gaze to the box where Charlotte Beelzebub, Quinella Asmodeus and Ingvald Leviathan were. He couldn't help but see them clapping, but the one who clapped the loudest was the descendant of Leviathan. Some in the audience were screaming with excitement, others were stunned by the brutality that Issei HYOUDOU showed against his own blood. At that, Issei took a deep breath before using a spell to be able to give a message to the audience. Issei. Well, he said with a smile on his face. Everyone paid attention to Issei HYOUDOU. First of all, hello dear audience. He said with that smile on his face. I came to fight with my brother today. I hope that at least it would be a challenge and make me fight to the maximum. In the end it was just a disappointment of my whole life. He said with coldness and a tone of disappointment in his voice. The public is attentive to everything Issei HYOUDOU said, some out of respect, fear or terror, while the leaders had a bad feeling about what was happening, and apparently they were not completely wrong. Issei. Today leaders saw a part of my power, but not all. He said mockingly, looking directly at the room of the leaders. I know very well that there was in that pocket dimension, and it seems that it was not enough to be able to submit. He said with an arrogant tone. What happened to your pride? Don't tell me that I broke something so small, or maybe you never had it. He said those words coldly. Those words were going directly to the leader of Olympus, who was gritting his teeth in frustration. He couldn't believe that that brat was humiliating him in public. Issei. Don't tell me, because I'm not interested. Maybe you're wondering why the current Sekiryuutei came to fight in this place. He said, to which they didn't wait seconds to hear murmurs from the audience. I came to make it clear that I'm not going to fight in a war that's not mine. I did a lot for you, and you paid me with indifference, rudeness. I extended my hand, and they rejected it, believing that my brother was the real hero. Observe the hero you chose, and don't come to me with the stupidity that is my duty. No more, I'm not going to fight for you anymore, he said seriously. Before deactivating the spell and walking straight to the exit of the stadium. In another room you could see as Quinella Asmodeus together with Charlotte Beelzebub and Ingvald Leviathan quietly retired, as they did not want to be part of a scandal. Even several reporters passed by them. Apparently the leaders of the factions had to give many explanations of what was about to happen, but they were not interested in any of it. In the room of the leaders, the only person who left that place was the Seraphim Gabriel, since she was not going to be part of them. Another person who quietly retreated out the door was the descendant of Lucifer, who went the way she came, leaving only the leaders to solve their personal problems, if that's what they can be called. At the base of the plumbers. It is seen how slowly a magic circle appears, where you can see Varine leaving along with Albedo and Sublimino. In that you hear how someone was walking in his direction, which put Sublimino on alert. Worse, before he could say anything, it was seen that the person was none other than Office Ouroboros. Office. So Varine is part of the team. She said with an expressionless tone, to which Albedo simply nods. Albedo. That's right, but I have a doubt that if they manage to find them. He meant the descendants of the ancient mass and the descendants of Lucifuge. Office. Yes, but it was not a problem for him to bring them to life. She said calmly, which made Sublimino and Albedo's eyes open for those words. Albedo. Apparently he doesn't mind using the dead. He said with a mocking tone, but before he can say anything, Office approaches Varine. Office. Apparently she's trying to fight hypnosis. The best thing will be to wait for my Issei and let him use that specific alien. She said it would be, to which Albedo said nothing to that logic. Sublimino. Sorry to bother, but who is the girl? He said curiously, to which Albedo chuckles. Albedo. I present to you Office Ouroboros, the dragon god of infinity. He said with an exaggerated tone, which left Sublimino wide-eyed by that news. Sublimino. You must be kidding, he said incredulously, to which Albedo shook his head. Albedo. I'm saying it seriously. He said calmly, to which Sublimino only gulped for those words. She's one of our allies, and also one of my students' lovers, but now the problem is dealing with certain people. He said seriously, to which Office nodded, an action that was imitated by Sublimino. Albedo was now sitting on Sublimino's shoulder, while Office was floating beside sleeping Varine. Apparently the girl was trying to fight hypnosis, so it was best to have her asleep, to avoid any problems. Apparently the demons had a high resistance to hypnosis, and why not, after all they had such power as if it were something natural in them. The best way to have her on their side was to open her eyes for the truth, as Issei says. On one part of their way, Offa separated from them for a moment to leave Varine in one of the rooms, so Sublimino along with Albedo went directly to one of the meeting rooms that the base had. Offa carefully left the thoroughbred demon. Apparently Albedo does not know that he gave a hard blow. If he had an idea of how to help Issei, but first he had to convince Albedo to help her in this project that she has in hand. Offa, maybe combining the corrodium with my infinite power, she said with an expressionless look. It's not the only time I did it, but Issei doesn't know that the necklace and earrings carry part of my power, she said with a smile empty of emotions. The necklace and earrings would have been a perfect gift, but every god can detect when something is not right, so by altering their state with certain spells, it makes them seem like gifts without anything special, or that they detect some imperfection in said gift. Office. But this project I have in mind can only be used on supernatural beings and not on humans, she said seriously, knowing the consequences when using corrodium on a human being. Slowly she was thinking about how to integrate her power. She should be careful in this, so she knew that Albedo could help her in such a project. Outside Ajuka Stadium, Issei HYOUDOU is observed with a tired look on his face. He did not feel like interviews. Apparently the leaders were going to have a long day with the press. Before he could continue walking, he could hear that someone was walking in his direction, to which he turned slowly to see 4 girls dressed in beautiful noble outfits, which are the 4 descendants of the original mass. Issei. They want to attract attention, he said with a mocking tone, to which Valerie shrugged it off. Valerie? Maybe. That was the only thing she said, to which Ingvild nodded at those words. Quinella. Apparently the leaders were scared by our presence, she said calmly, to which Issei just chuckled. Charlotte. Apparently the unfortunate bootlicker is in serious trouble, she said calmly, to which Issei could only laugh harder. Issei. Ha ha ha. Apparently the factions were in chaos, and they were just adding more fuel to the fire. Very well done. He kissed Quinella's forehead, which blushed for that show of affection. Valerie. Oi. Getting attention, trying to keep composure. What are you planning to do now? She asked. Issei. For the moment rest for a while, he said calmly. The people should not fear their leaders. Leaders should fear their people, he said with a serious look, to which Valerie opened her eyes realizing what he was planning. Valerie. And you're going to achieve that by blowing up Kuo Academy, she said in disbelief. Issei. That building is a symbol like the act of destruction. The people give power to symbols, he said calmly. Only, a symbol means nothing, but with enough people, blowing up a building can change the world. He finished speaking with a smile on his face. Quinella. You can count on me if with that you destroy this fragile piece, she said with a blush while looking away. Charlotte. I just hope the factions get a big surprise. She gave her support, to which Issei just patted her head. Ingvild. You can count on me, she said with a smile, to which Issei only sees that she was jealous. The witch Issei came up to stand in front of her and give her a kiss on the forehead, which put a smile on her face for that show of affection on the part of Issei. Issei. Come on now, that ruins your beauty, he said, to which Ingvild blushed at those words. The witch the 5 began to walk through the Astereth territory, so they did a little sightseeing around the place, mostly to entertain themselves, since there was one more problem to deal with and solve some doubts of certain elders. Issei. I just hope those old geezers don't ruin this moment, he thought seriously, to which Issei only set out to accompany by the 4 girls. Apparently they got along in perfect condition, if they could be jealous when seeking the attention of their master, but apparently they did not reach the state of fighting. He still remembers the fights of Dai's ex-harem. Apparently all his lovers were insecure with each other, mainly Ria's Gremory, along with Akeno Himejima. Issei. Poor him, but what can be expected of him? He thought coldly, as he remembered some things that made him think that if his brother's girls really loved him or were just with him for something else, apparently he was not going to know today. He quickly denied that thought. He didn't want to attract bad luck and ruin this moment. Apparently everyone had different tastes in whether he could use Iko, but in the end he didn't because he wanted to be the one who will enjoy a special moment with each of them. Although in the first part he was tempted to use Iko, and the reason for that was that the 4 girls came up with the idea of going to the boutique where each one posed in different outfits. Although Charlotte bought a different outfit, since the dress she wore before was cute, it was very uncomfortable for hiking. If you are wondering how he paid for all this, the answer is easy. In her possession he had 6 credit cards. After all, he is the enemy of the factions, and he must have the best, he and his allies. The first credit card is Zeus's, which he used to buy the whole month's food. The next is Serzich's Lucifer's, along with Seraphol Leviathan's, not forgetting Odin's credit cards. The last are Ajuka Beelzebub's and Shemhazai's. And if he wanted to see their face when he saw their account statement, but returning to the most important thing, he decided to spoil Charlotte and Quinella a little, mainly because they both didn't have much clothes, apart from their clothes with which they were buried and the dresses they got at the last minute. Apparently Charlotte Beelzebub was too innocent, but her appearance dictated otherwise. There is something in common in all of them, is that they were born with that instinct to dress in elegant clothes or clothes that make her stand out. With Quinella he decided to change his clothes for something more comfortable according to his point of view. And if Ingvild did not find anything to his taste, it seemed that every outfit looked like that of a clown, which got a laugh out of Issei. His opinion was supported by Valerie Lucifer, then Issei. I think it will be best to go find something to eat, he said calmly, to which the 4 girls roared their stomachs, to which they quickly nodded their heads. 3 hours later. It was already about to get dark. At that moment Issei could feel the presence of several demons approaching where he was together with the girls, but being able to see them more closely, he could see some soldiers of the demonic faction, to which he turned to see the girls. The Euros. Issei. Apparently our outing is already over, she said with boredom, to which the girls at first did not fully understand, only to see the soldiers, and Ingvild was scared for a moment to know what could happen. Ingvild. Please don't. She thought, scared, in that she feels like someone is hugging her, and that person was none other than Issei HYOUDOU. Issei. Don't worry, no one is going to take you away from me, she said with a smile, while continuing to hug Ingvild, to which the diva took Issei the hand, not wanting to let go. Soldier. Sekiryuutei, the Honorable Demon Council wants to talk to you and your female guests, he said with a perverted smile, looking at the 4 girls. Issei. Honorable Council, if is not, he thought sarcastically, while seeing the soldier with a look of annoyance. We follow you, errand boy, he said naturally, which annoyed the soldier that Issei spoke to him in that way. Both Quinella and Charlotte looked at him with a look of coldness, while Valerie only shook his head at the stupidity the guy was committing, but laughed at how Issei described him. After that moment, the girls followed the soldier, who tried to flirt with one of them, but it didn't help. All his arrogance left when Quinella threatened to cut off what makes him a man. Both Issei and the girls were hugging each other. It was going to take them 20 minutes to arrive with the soldiers. In the end they arrived 2 hours later to annoy the elders. When they arrived at the Council of Elders, the door opened where Issei HYOUDOU could see the old people with a look of annoyance, to which Issei quickly pointed to the soldier. Issei. He made us go the long way, he said innocently, with a guilty look, which the soldier opened his eyes comically. Council leader. That doesn't matter, he said through clenched teeth, as he saw the soldier that they were going to talk seriously about another time, and that it would be better for him to leave. The soldier quickly left because of the look he received from one of his superiors, only leaving the elders along with Zekrom Bale, which Issei rolled his eyes knowing what they were going to try to do. Council leader. Well, it's nice to finally meet the descendant of Asmodeus and Beelzebub, he said with a bitter smile, upon learning that the 2 were hybrids. Quinella. I can't say the same, he said coldly, drawing the attention of the elders, who were upset by those words. Elder 1. What are you trying to say? I asked angrily, thinking that I was insulting them. Quinella. Wait, don't tell me that age is affecting you, he said with a mocking tone, while smiling slightly. I'm not interested in what you say, so tell me why you need us, he said coldly. Zekrom. Maybe we can talk calmly, he said with respect. If we are glad to see them in their home, where they will be able to have. She could not finish speaking, being interrupted by Charlotte. Charlotte. If you realize that this place is not our home, she said with a curt tone, to which Zekrom quickly pulls himself together. Old man too. Don't be naive, your home is the underworld where your ancestors were born, he said seriously, thinking that with it he managed to convince the 2 girls on the way to Ingvild and Valerie. Quinella. That's all you had to say, mummy, he said coldly. For your information, I don't think to be in a place like this, he said with a look of death that scared those present. Zekrom. They don't understand that they are being naive, you are demons, therefore you are superior to that brat. He pointed without hesitation to the chestnut, to which I upset the girls. Issei. You're talking about Serial Lapdog, he said coldly, which earned a look of annoyance from Zekrom. Lord Bale. Don't talk to us in that tone, we are superior to you human, he said mockingly, to which Issei won a laugh, apart from the girls accompanying him. Issei. Ha ha ha. It was the funniest thing he could hear in his whole life. On the contrary, old man, the one who should speak to me with serious respect, you, after all, maybe the only thing I have left of humanity is my soul, but he appreciated that with my heart, he said. This attracted the attention of the elders. Lord Bale. Don't make fun of me, he said angrily, before throwing a wrecking ball at Issei, which did nothing to defend itself from said attack. In that, the attack of destruction happens as if it had never touched Issei, or as if Issei HYOUDOU had become intangible in the face of such an attack. Issei. As an old man, your attack can't do anything to me, you don't want to know the reason. He said with mockery, which Lord Bale was enraged about. Zekrom? What are you talking about? I asked seriously, to which Issei just raised his head, looking at the ceiling as if it were the most interesting thing in the world. Issei. Is it better to be feared or loved? I don't ask anyone in particular. I prefer to be feared, since fear lasts longer than love, since fear will keep them loyal to me, or in this case, they will think twice about things before trying something against me. He said, to which the elders were taking it like crazy. The answer is easy, my previous body was destroyed by the blood of Samuel, then Office Ouroboros gave me the necessary power for the creation of my new body, with the blood and flesh of Great Red. He said seriously, while pointing to himself with a seriousness. The elders of the Demon Council along with Zekrom Bale and Lord Bale froze because of those words. Before they could say anything, Issei raised its power, where everyone could detect that it was telling the truth. Everyone turned white because of that information. Zekrom? That's impossible. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I quickly swallowed saliva for those words, while the girls only laughed because of the scared face of each of the elders. Skip time. The faction leaders were hurriedly walking in the direction of where the elders were gathered. When they reached the gates, they noticed that the soldiers were sweating. Serziches? What's going on? He earnestly asked the soldiers, who could not answer his questions. When they received no answers, the leaders opened the door, but in that they get a surprise. Valerie Lucifer, Ingvold Leviathan, Quinella Asmodeus and Charlotte Beelzebub were quietly eating on one side, but they turned slowly to the center of the room and could see Issei HYOUDOU with one of his feet on top of Zekrom Bale, who seemed not to lift his face. Issei. Apparently we have guests. He said coldly, but the most surprised of all this was Serzich's Lucifer. Bajuka? What is happening here? He asked seriously, to which Issei met him with a bored look. Issei. I was invited to eat at this place, or am I wrong? He said calmly, to which the elders quickly nodded their heads, agreeing with Issei, as did Lord Bale. Seraphol. What did he do to keep them scared? He wondered mentally, seeing the elders according to Issei's words, knowing how arrogant they are. Issei. You can withdraw, but next time don't try one of these silly things again. He said coldly, to which all the old people nod their heads, as does Zekrom Bale. After a few minutes the room was only the leaders along with Issei and the descendants of the original mass, to which Issei sat down at the table to continue eating with great tranquility. Issei. Don't be silent, you have to give a lot of explanations for what you had planned. He said with Abu, to which I annoy Zeus for being scolded by a brat like Issei. Zeus. Look brat, we don't have to give you explanations. He said coldly, to which Issei simply watched him with disinterest. Issei. If you say that, but don't worry, I'll send them to the slaughterhouse. He said with a mocking tone, to which Zeus took a step in front to face the chestnut. I wouldn't do that if I were you. He said seriously, to which he confused Zeus. Athena. Father, please calm down. She said, to which Zeus gritted his teeth. Issei. I would listen to him, but leaving aside the tantrums to that decrepit one, you are going to negotiate with me in case this comes to light. He said calmly, before showing an envelope to the leaders. Where he throws it to the leaders, which was caught by Seraphol, who had a bad feeling about said envelope. When he opened it he could see several photographs. Slowly he saw them and opened his eyes in terror. They were quickly taken by Serziches, which gave the leaders several images. Issei. Don't worry about it, I will show the audience a video of you showing your true face. Yes, I am a bread of God. He said with an innocent smile. Odin. How could he get this information? He thought with disbelief, since there was no evidence, or that's what he thought, since these images showed that such evidence does exist, and the words of Issei did not help. Zeus. That brat. He thought angrily, apparently the Sekiryuutei had him against a rock and a hard place. Issei. As you can see, I have something I can negotiate with you. He said coldly, to which Serziches let out a heavy sigh. Serziches. And what would you ask for in exchange for these tests? I ask with difficulty. His companions and wife could not believe that Serziches was giving in to Issei. Odin. What are you going to ask me? I ask with a defeated tone. Zeus. And what will you ask from me? I ask coldly. Athena could not believe that her father was being subdued right in front of her nose. After that, both Shemezai, Yasaka and Elmenhold nodded in agreement with Serziches. They couldn't do anything, and it made them very angry. Seraphol. In the end you are not so different from your brother. She said coldly, to which Issei saw her for a few seconds, before bursting into laughter at those words. Issei. That's your worst attempt at insult. He said with a smile, to which Seraphol gritted his teeth, seeing that his insult only caused Issei to laugh. Forgetting the Mayu, let's go straight to business. He said seriously, to which the leaders nodded. Quinella. Maybe you have an idea for this. He said with a smile, to which he drew the chestnut's attention. The witch Issei approached Quinella, where she began to explain her idea to him, to which Issei raised an eyebrow at her idea. He could not help but smile mockingly. "Quinella. What did you think?" I asked sweetly, to which Issei hugged her and carried her with a smile. "Issei. You're fantastic," she said with a smile, to which Quinella blushed as she realized that all the attention was on her. "Quinella. Put me down," said Roha out of embarrassment, to which Issei chuckled when he saw Quinella blushing like a tomato. After a few minutes Issei lowered her, where I turned to see the leaders coldly, and then let out a sigh. "Issei. You will see, my dear leaders," he said with a mocking tone. "These will be my 3 conditions for each of you," he said seriously. "The first will be that you do not try to seek my help at all. Your problems are only yours and not mine. This applies to those under my protection or allies," he said coldly, to which the leaders reluctantly agreed. The leaders nodded their heads at said words, to which Issei only nodded his head, knowing that the leaders understood his words. "Issei. My second condition is that if someone wants to ally with me among your ranks, they will not be able to oppose me if it is an important person or a relative of yours," he said seriously, to which the leaders opened their eyes at those words. "Zeus. You must be joking," he said angrily, to which Issei shook his head at those words. "Issei. I'm not kidding, after all, if some people are going to ally among their ranks it's for good reasons," he said with a curt tone. Zeus reluctantly accepted this condition, but without knowing that for a few moments Issei drew a smile on his face, then later put a serious look on his face. "Issei. And my last condition is that I want her," he said calmly, which caught the attention of the leaders, while pointing to the goddess Athena, where many opened their eyes for such nonsense according to his words. "Zeus. Okay," he said without hesitation, to which he made the leaders of the other factions open their eyes by the response he received. On the other hand, Athena opened her eyes with surprise, not because of Issei's words, but because of how her father accepted without hesitation. She saw him without being able to believe what she had heard. "Issei. Said this idiot is his father," he thought coldly, before turning to see Athena, who was paralyzed. "I can't believe this about the god of Olympus, not wanting to lose allies and agreeing to sell one of his daughters on the other hand," he said with mockery. Zeus opened his eyes to know that everything was a joke, to which he slowly turned to see his daughter Athena, who looked down at him. "Zeus. Wait, Athena." I tried to get closer to her daughter, but Athena took a step back. "Athena. Don't touch me," she said with anger, frustration and distrust. "Issei. Apparently Zeus is not a person you can trust, least of all his family," he said sarcastically, to which Zeus turned to see him. "Zeus. This is your fault, brat," he said angrily, to which Issei denied Zeus's words with his hand. "Issei. You blame others for your mistakes. What a pathetic god you are. I didn't plan on doing this. I thought Zeus was going to prove to be someone I could trust, and he just disappointed me," he said seriously, but those words confused the rest. And that Issei HYOUDOU activates the Omnitrix, revealing a plant-like humanoid alien that has a green and black body in general, mostly with a head stamped in red flames and root-like feet, which apparently hold black rocks. Their eyes are oval in shape with dots at each end with pupils that copy the shape but are smaller. Also, her shoulders and head have red petals, and her elbows and legs have green ruffles sticking out. Everyone quickly got on guard, but at that Issei approaches Athena, who did not notice Issei. It only extended its hand to her face, where everyone paid attention and saw how a kind of green spores came out of her hand. Athena Tosio for a moment before falling on her face before hitting the ground. Issei caught her. The leaders realized that Issei put her to sleep without hesitation. After that Issei carried her in his arms. "Issei. The end, since Zeus agreed to give it to me, who am I to refuse such an offer?" he said with a mocking tone, to which Zeus quickly saw with murderous eyes Issei. "Zeus. Let her go," he said coldly, to which Issei only saw him for a moment. "Issei. No, Zeus, it was your fault, and now she belongs to me, after all you agreed," he said seriously, but in that Odin prevents Zeus from passing. "Odin. We can't do anything now, somehow the kid just played it to you and came out winning," he said seriously. Inside he was applauding at the move that Issei made. "Issei. And thank you for accepting my conditions. I left for the time being," he said calmly. At that Quinella, Charlotte, Ingvild and Valerie approach him, where Issei creates a magic circle to leave. Zeus tries to stop Issei, but apparently it was too late. It disappeared in front of his very nose. 3 days later. Things in the supernatural world had become very complicated for many of the leaders, among one of them the one that stood out the most was Zeus himself. His wife, brothers, children and nephews looked at him with a look of disappointment to know that he sold Athena without thinking twice. It annoyed him greatly. Elsewhere was Artemisa with a bored look on her face, mainly from seeing the others planning a rescue for her younger sister Athena. She knew very well that such a rescue should not happen for several reasons, and one of them is the state in which Athena is currently. Suddenly Artemis is taken out of her thoughts by a beautiful young woman with long eyelashes and blue eyes. She has long black hair with Haim style that is decorated with red ribbons, which keep her hairstyle in two tails. It was none other than Hestia, who is a symbol of the house, gave shelter to the family and protected it from any physical threat. In addition, she ensured that the highest moral values that she embodied, such as righteousness, kindness and generosity, were observed in every house. Also, along with Athena, Artemis and she were the three virgin goddesses, but currently Hestia was with a look of coldness on her face because of what had happened a few days ago because of Zeus and Athena's unknown whereabouts. Hestia. I think the only one to be able to find him would be Artemis, maybe this is due to something in particular, said Syria while watching Artemis, who had a worried look etched on her face. Hermes. I think I can help you in finding some indication of her whereabouts, he said, to which Hestia nodded gratefully. Artemisa. I'll start sending some of my most loyal followers, she said seriously, to which everyone nodded. I can't leave her near a man like him and less like a dragon, she said with an angry tone or overpowering tone, knowing that she protects her younger sister so much. After a few minutes, only Artemis was left with Hestia. The latter had a worried look on her face, while Artemis only saw Hestia with an analytical look, and, since for the world, she can't let her guard down being close to her. Hestia. Things have been getting complicated since that albedo guy appeared, she said angrily when naming that person who seemed to play with everyone. Artemis. I understand, but you know, and that if that disgusting man won, we will have to release Nyx, she said with a serious tone, to which Hestia opened her eyes for that information. Hestia. Wait, don't tell me that Zeus accepted the bet as if nothing happened, he said seriously, to which Artemis nods at those words, stating that it's true. Damn, apparently the boy only did it for his own benefit, he said with a defeated tone when he knew that Issei had the meeting out of his hand. Artemisa. Yes, if maybe we talk to him we can still come to an agreement, or he can give us back my sister, he said seriously, to which Hestia only sighed heavily when she saw the state of Artemisa. Hestia. I had doubted you before, I would think you were acting, she said calmly. Artemisa. That was before, because now if I'm acting and you don't even notice, she thought with a smile in her mind, while keeping a look of seriousness and concern on the outside. Hestia. If there is no other one left, we will have to look for information when he meets with the faction leaders again, she said heavily, to which Artemis reluctantly agreed. Meanwhile, HYOUDOU residence. There was Ingvald Leviathan with a bored look on his face, mainly because Seraphol was demanding an explanation of what was happening, or how he got so close to Issei HYOUDOU. Seraphol. I don't understand how you could do this, Ingvald, he said seriously. Not only are you going with him, but you support him and turning his back to our features. I reproach Ingvald, who only saw her with a look of annoyance. Ingvald. If I went with him it was by my own decision, there is no great mystery in him, he said seriously, to which Seraphol only shook his head at Ingvald's attitude. Seraphol. I don't even recognize you anymore, you weren't like that before, she said with some sadness of seeing Ingvald's new attitude, thinking that it was due to being close to Issei. Ingvald. What are you trying to say with that? I asked incredulously, seeing that Seraphol was scolding her for her attitude. In the first place, she must have matured at some point. This attitude is because they opened my eyes about the true colors of the world, she said seriously. Seraphol. Ingvald. She said incredulously, seeing that kind girl turn into a rebel. He is not a good person for you, he can play with your feelings like his brother did, she said disgustedly, naming Dai. Ingvald. Don't you dare compare them, she said with her hair covering her eyes. Don't you dare compare them, it was Issei HYOUDOU who saved me, and what was the cost? You know what was that cost, she said, to which Seraphol shook her head out of fear. I use the juggernaut. Drive to save me, I cure myself of my disease, and all for nothing in return. I paid him with inhuman treatment because of Dai, but I know it was also my fault, she said sadly, while tears threatened to come out of his eyes. Seraphol. But he doesn't want to help the factions. I try to defend myself, only to see how Ingvald approaches her and takes her by the neck. Ingvald, let go of me, I don't want to hurt you. Seeing that Ingvald didn't see her in the eyes, I was going to attack her with all the pain of the heart. It was the sound that was heard. The residents at that moment came to see what was happening, only to see Seraphol with a hand on his cheek and Ingvald with her hand raised, where you could see that her hand was somewhat red, in addition to her face coming out tears. Ingvald. How dare you see Issei as a simple weapon? Did you ever see me as your friend or as another one of the weapons that they must take care of, so that he does not reveal himself against them? She said angrily, to which Seraphol could not look her in the eyes. Rias. What's going on here? I ask in disbelief, seeing the scene, and more so because of the words of the descendant of Leviathan. Ingvald. They are not interested, since this talk has just ended, she said angrily, as she leaves the living room, where she goes up the stairs and to her room. All this was observed by Quinella Asmodeus, who only shook her head at the attitude of the current mass. She just watched the scene of Serafo lying on the floor for the last time, before shaking her head. Quinella. This comedy is already too worn out, but it looks entertaining to change some things. He said with a smile on his face. Since the best place to hide the goddess Athena was with the naked eye, but the residents of the mansion knew it, the answer was a simple no, and so it was going to continue for a long, very long time. And that she sees as a specific person and puts a curious look on her face. This person, besides drawing her attention, could see that I looked directly into her eyes, where an idea came to her, where she could not help but smile in a mocking way. Quinella. Maybe I can ask Ice Sama for help to destroy the DXD group inside, she thought with a smile, thinking that she could destroy the DXD group in an unusual way. With that thought in mind, he retired to his room, or more specifically to the room of Issei HYOUDOU, his master and master whom he served devoutly. While Charlotte Beelzebub was looking around the HYOUDOU residence with a look of tranquility, where she was accompanied by Office Ouroboros, but when she saw a specific part of the house, or rather a room, she couldn't help but smile in a great way. Charlotte. It's a great place. I never imagined that this house had a room like this, she said with a smile. Office. You're right about that, maybe we can alter this room a little for our use, he said calmly, to which Charlotte nodded her head. Our Office was in charge of hiding the room with his magic. In the end he arrived at the indoor pool of the house. I just observed it with some curiosity, where he only approached to see his reflection in the water. Charlotte. I never imagined that I would come back to life and more to serve my new master, of which I am completely grateful, she said with a cold tone, but at the same time of devotion to her master Issei. Office. Apparently your body and soul have adapted again, he said calmly, observing Charlotte, who was still seeing her reflection in the water. Room of Zenobia Corda. A short time ago she became a high-class demon, but at the moment she had a look of disbelief when she saw that someone she considered a candidate told her no, which completely baffled her, those words, so she wanted an explanation of what was happening. Zenobia. But because, she said in disbelief as she sees Verine with a serious look on her face. Verine. I'm sorry to disappoint, but I received a better proposal than yours, she said in all honesty, and she was not wrong. Zenobia. But who could propose you to join your peerage? She said with a tone of disbelief, to which Verine only shook her head. Verine. I didn't join any peerage, she said calmly, which confused Zenobia. I realized that this person shares the same dream as me, she said calmly, which Zenobia was seeing without understanding anything. Zenobia. And what is this dream of yours? I asked with interest. Verine. I'm sorry Zenobia, but that's a secret between me and my new leader, she said with a playful tone, as she brings one of her hands to her lips and makes a sign that she shouldn't ask any more about the subject. Zenobia. I understand Verine, she said with a defeated tone of not being able to convince Verine to join her entourage. Verine. Besides, I have to help Ice Sama in destroying the factions. I'm sorry, but you're my enemy now, and if I have to kill you, I will definitely do it, she thought seriously, while on the outside she gave Zenobia a smile of understanding. Don't worry, you can count on me in everything you need someday, she said with that smile. After a few minutes Verine left Zenobia's room. It could be seen that Valerie Lucifer was waiting for her outside her room, to which she did not have to speak, only to limit herself in nodding her head. Best room. Issei HYOUDOU could be observed with a look of tranquility on his face while he was lying on the sofa. From time to time he would see the bed where the goddess Athena was sleeping peacefully. Apparently she has not woken up because of everything that happened. Greg. You know, comrade, it would be easier to corrupt her without anyone noticing at the moment, he said in the chestnut's mind, who only shook his head at his companion's words. Issei. No, I want to make her know the despair. Thanks to the power of Big Red that runs through my veins, I could see her memories, and she was a participant in trying to chain my life to the factions. She thought with some resentment. First I needed Athena to know the despair and break it slowly with that desperation. Greg. Yes, you are a vengeful dragon, but I can't go against that thought, he said to his bearer, who only limited himself to chuckling at Drake's words. While Athena was giving small signs of awakening, which slowly made a grimace, where she turned on her side by the sun's rays that bothered her, this caught Issei's attention. Issei. Then we talk Drake, I think our guest is about to wake up, she said calmly, to which Drake just nodded her head. So he settles on the sofa, while watching Athena move from one side to the other, then he sees that she slowly sits on the bed with her eyes closed, and carves her eyes lazily. After a few seconds she stretches while letting out a yawn. With a sleepy look she observes the room. Issei, when he saw that Athena was looking at him directly, opened his eyes with surprise and all the laziness left on his face, where he blushed like a tomate. Athena. I look at him for a few moments before lowering his gaze to his clothes, where he noticed a small detail. He didn't have his dress on, he was in his underwear. Kaya. He shouted with all his might, at least Issei was grateful that the room was soundproofed. After a few minutes, Athena alone under the gaze with shame, as she drops the sheet, Issei looked at Athena's action with a raised eyebrow. Issei. You shouldn't have run me out of here and let her get dressed. He said in a calm tone, which Sasha with a sad look did not dare to lift her head. Athena. No, after all I am now. He could not say those words, to which Issei got up from his place and walked to where Athena is and covered her with the sheet. Where he only left his head uncovered, she looked at him with a look of disbelief, while tears came out of her eyes, to which Issei sat on the edge of the bed while caressing Athena's head. Issei. You know well that's a lie, I only did it to annoy the old man you call father. She said with boredom, to which Athena only turned into a ball with a sheet. Athena. Yes. She said in a discouraged voice, to which Issei saw this with some sadness seeing Athena in such a fragile state. Issei. Look, you're free to leave whenever you want. Before you ask who left you in your underwear, was Quinella. She said calmly, remembering that Quinella wanted to leave her naked for good. Athena. I don't understand why you're being so nice to me. She said sadly, while still covered by the sheet. Issei. Because you were a participant or give the idea that they will use me as a tool. He said calmly, which Athena opened her eyes to know that Issei knew all that. Don't be surprised, Athena, this world is moved by money, riches, and no one is loyal to someone for anything. He said calmly, to which Athena could not help but agree with the current Sekiryuutei. Athena. If you know all that because you don't yell at me or claim me. She said with a confused look. Issei. He didn't gain anything by yelling at you, besides I would only be behaving as everyone expects, but I'm not like that. He said calmly. Besides that idea was for education or to see people close to you behave in the same way. He spoke calmly. If I help you right now it's not because I expect nothing in return, I only do it to see you in a weak state. He said with some sadness in his tone of voice. Athena. Then you only help me out of pity. She said sadly, she wanted to break down in tears, but in that she feels like Issei wraps her in his arms. Issei. You're wrong. She said, to which Athena was going to complain to Issei for lying to her. I'm only doing it because I see in your look that you need help to free yourself from those chains. She said calmly. Athena. What are you talking about? I asked confused. Issei. Look at this. He said calmly, while Athena saw how a kind of double-edged razor was in Issei's hand. It's nice isn't it? He asked, to which Athena nodded her head. Perfectly balanced, as everything should be, to still side. He said with a sweet tone, while moving the razor from one side. Or the other. He moved the spear to the opposite side. At that Issei offers him the razor, out of curiosity he did the same as Issei, where he couldn't help but smile when he saw that he managed to put it in balance as Issei did. Issei. I'm going to win and I'll manage to balance the scales between the human and supernatural world. He said calmly, to which Athena did not look at him like a madman, but with admiration for those words that came from Issei's lips. Athena. He will be able to unite both worlds, I want to believe in his words. She thought with a small smile, while the gems and bracelet shone softly, before recharging on the chest of Issei. Issei. If I'm going to unite the world, I'm only going to ask for one thing in return, and that is not to be afraid. He said frankly, which attracted Athena's attention. Is not to be afraid to evolve with the world. He said calmly, which Athena opened her eyes with surprise. Athena. It's a great goal. She said with a smile, while holding the knife in balance. Your dream is unique, Ice. Sama. She said with a smile, which caught the chestnut's attention, but decided not to comment on something, so as not to put any doubt on Athena. Issei. The best thing will be to retire, and you can take a shower with all the calm. She said calmly, which Athena nodded her head. See you in a while. She said, and then leave the room. Athena was just playing with the knife trying to balance things, but a doubt arose in her mind, and she put the knife in her hands. Athena. Who will be the winner between the factions and Issei? He calmly asked himself. At that moment the razor leaned on Issei HYOUDOU's side. Apparently he will be the one to lead us to that bright future. He said with a smile on his lips. Outside the room Issei HYOUDOU could be seen with a calm look on his face. Apparently his way of persuading Athena was coming out successfully. Greg. Apparently giving him a hint of what you want was a bit over the top, but apparently it's coming out perfectly. He said to his bearer mentally, who nodded his head. Issei. That's right my friend, although I'm surprised that Athena doesn't realize that the corruption in her is progressing perfectly. He thought calmly. Greg. It's better that you don't forget mate that power attracts power. He told her seriously. Issei. I haven't forgotten. He thought seriously, before walking away from the room. Greg. The thing about Athena is that her power tries to repel the corrodium's power, but that power also gets corrupted, and in a moment it will be too late. She said to Issei, to which she could not help but smile at that information. In the living room, Saji Genshiro could be observed with a look of anger, which was replaced by a look of fear when he saw that Sona Sitri was watching him with an admiring look of anger on her face. "Sona, you were a big stupid," she said with a furious look. She didn't like that many of the demons spoke badly about her because of Saji. She not only supported Dai, but also helped him with his plan to put Issei as an outcast. She said coldly. "Saji, you can't tell me anything. You were the president of the student council, and you were able to check those rumors if they were true instead of supporting them," he said mockingly, to which Sona looked at him coldly. "Sona, so now your true appearance comes out. If I made a mistake by reincarnating a person like you," she said coldly. "Saji, what are you trying to say with that?" I asked confused, to which Sona shook her head when answering that question. "Sona, you will know that," he said calmly, as he withdrew and left Saji alone, who only looked at him with anger that the truth would come to light. "Saji, now what the fuck am I going to do? My life is ruined by that damn woman," he said angrily when reminded Quinella that he used his charm to drop all the soup. He was going to make her pay, no matter the cost, in order to make her suffer, but without realizing that her attempts were going to fail. Since Momo Hanakai only saw what was happening in the room. "Momo, it's a pity that I can't kill him now," she thought with some frustration at not being able to make Saji Genshiro suffer at that moment. Elsewhere, the subject wearing a silver helmet with a purple visor that blocked the view of his face, leaving only two bright purple eyes visible. In a black suit, silver boots, gauntlets and a chest plate, a purple cape also hanging from his shoulders. "Beyond. So you need a little help to bring true peace to this world," he said seriously, as Albedo stood in front of him. "Albedo, what can I tell you?" I asked calmly, to which Eon nodded his head. "After all, it's not long until the others arrive at this place," he said calmly, to which Eon arched an eyebrow at those words. "The next one to arrive is a being with a resemblance to an octopus. Its skin is a darker shade, its tentacles are thicker, it has a metallic armor, its arms are organic, its body is covered with a new armor, and it is equally large." This was none other than Vilgax, a chimera sui generis from the planet Vilgaxia. He is Ben's nemesis and one of his most recurring and dangerous opponents. And finally, the last one has grey skin with black symbols on the shoulders. His attire was like that of a tribal or a nomad. "Hex a self-proclaimed master magician who wishes to rule the world with his vast magical powers and lives in a large tower-like building." Everyone was gathered to receive a message from Albedo, who only saw this with a smile on his face, where he simply set out to get his attention. "Albedo, it's good to see that you were able to get to this place," he said seriously. "I have gathered you here today for something that may be of interest to each of you, but more for my apprentice," he said seriously, to which Vilgax arched an eyebrow. "Vilgax? What do you mean?" he said coldly, to which Albedo only smiled when he saw that he caught Vilgax's attention. "HYOUDOU residence." Issei HYOUDOU can be observed with a calm look on his face. He needed to think about his future attacks, but one that would allow him to destroy the Kuo Academy extremely easily, but he couldn't think of anything. "Issei, it's not long now to prepare the coup. The destruction of the Kuo Academy is going to be the start of the countdown of my greatest plan." He smiled at the thought of the face that each of the faction leaders could witness the destruction of their weak peace. After all, peacetime causes more war. While he was still in his thoughts, he felt that he was approaching him, so he put his thoughts aside and saw that the person who was in front of him was none other than the same Arthur Pendragon who saw him with a serious face on his face, but this one only stepped next to Issei. "Issei, if I remember correctly, his beloved is Elaine Westcott. I wonder what would happen if he had no choice but to kill her," he thought with a mocking tone, before a sinister smile was drawn on his face. "I think it's time to take a trip," he thought with a smile on his face. While he was going up to his room, he thought about several things, mainly in which way he could attack, because not to attract several important people to the DXT team, and that they have no other than to kill them. "Issei, thank you Arthur for giving me this idea. Don't worry that the death of your beloved will be live," he thought with a smile, as he goes up the stairs with that smile on his face. When he was going up the stairs, he could notice that Charlotte was accompanying Ingvild Leviathan and Valerie Lucifer. Apparently the three of them lived together in a quiet way. Since Quinella Asmodeus is somewhat possessive with him, Valerie is also, but not so much. Apparently they were also walking to his room, where upon entering he could notice Quinella checking some bags in his hands, which attracted the attention of Issei. "Issei, what's going on Quinella?" I asked calmly, to which Quinella just turns to see Issei with a smile on his face. "Quinella, it's only a surprise for tomorrow that you're returning to the academy," he said calmly, to which Issei arched an eyebrow. By the way Valerie, this is for you, take the liberty to prepare everything for tomorrow. He said with a smile, to which Valerie with a look of confusion takes the bag in his hands, where when opening it, quickly the lid with his hands. Charlotte. It must be something extremely important. She said with boredom, to which Quinella also throws a bag at her, to which she catches it in the air. Quinella. Don't worry, because Valerie won't tell you what the bag contains. She said, for later the descendant of Lucifer approached Charlotte and I whispered to her what is in the bag. Issei. And why so much mystery for tomorrow? I asked intrigued, to which Ingvild also nodded her head. Quinella. It's a surprise. She said with a mysterious tone. Besides, we need a facade to go unnoticed. She said seriously, to which Charlotte and Valerie nodded their words. After a few minutes Issei lay down on his bed, since he was going to return to work tomorrow. After a few minutes each of the girls lay down next to Issei. On the left side was Ingvild Leviathan, on the right side was Valerie, on Valerie's side was Quinella, and on Ingvild's side was Charlotte. Next day. You could see Issei HYOUDOU in his classroom with a bored look on his face, since the teacher had not arrived, so some were standing chatting in other seats, but in that you can see how someone slowly opens the door, which attracts the attention of Issei HYOUDOU. Where Quinella Asmodeus enters with a smile on her face, she was wearing a purple suit, she had glasses in her hands, her hair was up, many male students could not see her with a goofy look because of how beautiful the teacher was. Quinella. As far as I can see almost everyone is out of their seat or sitting in places they are not. He said with a serious look, to which everyone quickly returns to their seats. Forgetting my first impression of you, I introduce myself to you, my name is Quinella Matheson. He said seriously. Student. Sorry. Said the student nervous because of the teacher's cold look. Quinella. My personal life shouldn't matter to you. He said seriously. Now I'm going to introduce you to your new classmate. He said seriously, to which everyone paid attention. You can come in now. He said calmly and kindly. Issei HYOUDOU someone came to his mind and he couldn't help but look at the door, since the person was none other than Valerie Lucifer. The girls at that moment each looked at each other and felt jealous of seeing that girl. The boys each could not take their eyes off Valerie, to whom when he was in front of all of them, he made a slight bow. Valerie. Nice to meet you, my name is Valerie Eriksson. She said with a formal tone. The girls for a moment could notice a killer instinct coming out of her. In another classroom, more specifically in Ingvild's classroom, she opened her eyes with surprise to see that Charlotte was going to study with her. The last name she was going to use at the moment would be Charlotte Ali, which only attracted the attention of the students in a great way. The whole school was surprised by the appearance of the three girls. Valerie only sat next to Issei HYOUDOU. Issei did not want to attract attention, and they knew it perfectly. After school, while they were resting, Valerie could be observed with a bored look, since in front of her was LaFay Pendragon watching her leader with a look of disbelief. Riaz. I don't understand why you're coming to the academy, I didn't even notice you before. He said seriously, while looking at the white-haired girl. Valerie. I got bored of the same old thing, and I just wanted to come and study, it's nothing special. He said seriously. Others like Zenobia Corda was interested to see that Charlotte Beelzebub gets along with Varine and Ingvild Leviathan, as if they were lifelong friends. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.